All right, we will call the Senate Committee on Local Government to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Opening the roll. Uh-oh. That's a workers' comp issue. All right, we have some housekeeping real quickly to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Obenshain has asked that we strike Senate Bill 554. Do I have a motion? Motion and second being properly made. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, since you're doing cleanups, I'd make 469, we can strike it.
All right, first let's close the roll.
10 ayes, 0 nays.
10 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries, and that Senate Bill 554 is stricken at the request of the patron. We hear from the gallery here. There's another one we'd like to strike. Patron.
Mr. Chairman, I have 469 before
Senator
the committee, and it's a proffer bill that I think is going to get worked on, and there's no hope in survival, so I'll strike that bill.
Senate Bill 469? Yes, Mr. All right, Senate Bill 469 has been a motion being properly made in a second supporting it. Is there any discussion on the motion to strike Senate Bill 469? Hearing none, clerk, please open the roll and close the roll.
10 ayes, 0 nays.
10 ayes, 0 nays. The motion to strike at the request of the patron, Senate Bill 469 carries, and that bill is stricken. I've also heard from a couple patrons, so I just want to go through this. Richard Stewart's bill, Senate Bill 208 and Senate Bill 994. The patron has consulted with me on these two bills, and I understand what his request is, and I'm going to honor his request. He has asked that these bills be carried over for the year, that is to stay with the committee so that we will consider them next year. But what we're going to do, and I know you're all going to love this, is we're going to convene the Senate Committee on Local Government to hear and take evidence and testimony on these two bills during the summer. So the issue has been properly formulated. That way we'll all get back together.
Mr. Chairman, could you name the two bills again?
They are Senate Bills 208 and 944. And we'll take that up in a block. Motion has been made to carry over for the year and to reconvene the Senate Committee on Local Government during the summer to receive testimony on these two bills at the request of the patron. A motion being properly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second being supported. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, clerk, please open the roll. What? Do you want to be heard? Oh. Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen, step forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Edward Mullen on behalf of the Home Builders Association. I know there's a number of bills up, and I understand the patron's wish and the chairman's wish to carry this over and do a hearing over the summer. We're happy to talk about the impact fee bills at this moment and can do that if that.
Mr. Mullen, I'd only say I think is the roll closed, by the way?
Yes.
That we have taken that up in a block. We're carrying them over. We're not passing them by indefinitely. And what we're going to do is, and certainly we would invite you and whomever you represent who'd like to give testimony with regard to these two bills. This is the request of the patron, not that they be sent off to a study, but rather that we find a time agreeable to all the members of this committee, reconvene here at the Capitol, and have a full day of fun. And so I hope that you can join us then.
I look forward to it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Thank you very much. All right, so that 10 yeas, 0 nays, those bills in a block are continued for a year, and we will see each other in the spring or summer. We'll probably make it summertime.
You're on retainer.
All right.
If it was over the summer, you're on billable hours.
Sorry. Leave, that's all the housekeeping. Is there any other housekeeping that I'm unaware of? From the clerks? Nope. All right, let's take up Senator Black, Senate Bill 957.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this may end up in the same place as those other two. I have a request from the county of Prince William And also there's a resolution from Loudoun County. When we passed the proffer bill, it was intended to do very good things, and I think in some areas perhaps it has. But what it has done is it has essentially frozen the applications for dwelling units, and it's causing quite a disruption within particularly Northern Virginia. I noticed there was an article, February 2nd, Richmond Times business section, entitled "Economists to Area Builders: Housing Inventory Too Low," and this is it's mostly an interview with Elliot Eisenberg, a former senior economist with National Association of Home Builders, and they had a big convention here in Richmond, and he said the main problem with housing market is a lack of inventory, and it's driving up prices. And he says that the inventory's been falling for several consecutive years. You're just not building enough homes. He was speaking about the Richmond area. The same thing can be said about Northern Virginia, where we have, for example, in Prince William County, typically we were having 7 to 10 applications per year. It dropped to 3, and they were 3 small ones. So we had big housing applications before. Now we just have 3. So essentially, we are grinding to a halt in the production of housing. The problem, and there are unintended consequences of the proffer bill, which was very well intended, but now there's sort of a presumption that anything suggested by a local government official is unreasonable. And so local governing bodies are being advised by their council just not to talk to applicants because there is a legal risk associated with it that they're going to appear to be trying to twist arms. And so it's had a strong chilling effect on dialogue. And I have heard from Frederick County, I don't know whether they've passed a resolution, but I know that Loudoun and Prince William have felt very strongly that the proffer bill needs some change. So in any event, that is the gist of the bill. Now the bill, this particular bill would basically, for Prince William County only, it would flip back to the old way. I'm not sure that we don't need to discuss and evaluate this beforehand. And so I would be very happy if we would become a part of the discussion that you're going to conduct later in the year.
Senator, let me ask you a question. Can we would be more than happy then to, as we're doing with Senator Stewart's bill, add you to the list where we take this issue up in mass, if that's better for you, or you can have your bill considered by this full committee. It's up to you, sir. I don't want to hinder your ability to do that. We're talking about impact fees, which I think are related to what you're talking about here.
Well, no, I'm not talking about impact fees.
I know yours is about a proffer, but it's in the same kind of genre, I guess. Right?
Mr.
Proffers.
Chairman,
Senator Favola.
a question for the patron, this may clarify. As I read the bill, you're basically looking for an exclusion for Prince William County.
That's right.
That is what the bill says.
And this is an exclusion from the proffer bill. That
From the
General
proffer
Assembly
bill.
Passed, I think it was 2016.
Correct.
This is clearly in that realm of the proffer study scope, and I'm going to move that we carry this bill over and study it in the summer when we look at the other proffer bills, and that's my motion.
And I certainly feel comfortable with that. I know Mark Sickle, also out of the House, has something similar for Fairfax County. Obviously, we need to do more study and more evaluation. I do have a representative of Prince William, if we could just give him a moment to make his comment.
A moment is fine.
It'll be a moment, Mr. Chairman.
Wonderful moment.
In 18 months, prior to our implementation of the bill a couple of years last year, the county would get a dozen rezoning applications each year for thousands of units. In the past 18 months, we've gotten 3. And it's really slowed down the development in Prince William County. The developers in particular have expressed a lot of frustration with the current legislation. They've been voicing their concerns to the county board, and that's the genesis for a lot of this legislation. In addition, the developers have said their inability to sit down with the county and discuss proposals has a chilling effect on what they do. So that's kind of the long and short of it, briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And I think that if we undertake this endeavor in the summer to study this, really having this committee study this, you're welcome to bring whatever testimony and evidence you have showing that reduction has been caused solely by this piece of legislation.
We'd be happy to do that.
Yes, sir. We look forward to seeing you this summer.
Thank you.
Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Edward Mullen on behalf of the Home Builders Association from Reed Smith. Understand the direction you seem to be headed, sir, but I would like to make a couple of comments on the proffer bill itself and sort of where we are with it, if that's okay with you, sir.
Yes, sir. Please.
The proffer bill was very clearly a sea change in public policy in the state and in this area. It was based on the reality that there was a system that had gotten a bit out of control in certain places. Not everywhere, but in certain places it had gotten out of control. And the premise was very simply that you should be responsible for impacts that you cause and not beyond that. And it had gotten well beyond that in certain situations. So the premise is sound. The past 2 years have been a learning process for localities and developers alike as everybody figures out the new law and how to implement it. In a lot of places, this has worked very well. The builders and the localities have worked very collaboratively to work within the new system, and it's just fine. There are areas where it has not worked well so far. I could attribute that to a number of things, but what I will say is I think the areas that have not yet bitten the bullet to implement the bill, it's in some respects the result of interpretations that are, from my perspective, unduly conservative and unduly cautious. I certainly don't fault, we had similar testimony over on the House side. I certainly don't fault lawyers for protecting their clients, but I don't think that warrants a full-blown study on the matter. I think we have pledged on behalf of the Home Builders Association and the Northern Virginia Building Industry Association that voted to support the existing proffer bill, to sit down with localities. We've been doing it throughout the summer. So I understand the direction the committee's headed. I'd ask that you not do that. I understand studying impact fees. That is a significant sea change. The proffer bill itself has been implemented very effectively in a number of localities in the state. There's a couple of localities that it has not been implemented yet, again, I think due to some overly conservative reading, but we continue to work with them, and we'd ask that you not send this to study.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. I expect and look forward to you proving to all of us that we were right when we passed it in the summer. I have a motion.
Mr. President.
Mr.
President. That's
Not yet.
2 hours ago, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Saravel.
Speaking of the motion.
Senator.
So, a couple things. One, this goes more to Fairfax County than Prince William. But when we passed this bill 2 years ago now, 2 sessions ago,
2 years.
At least Fairfax County was an active participant in negotiating the final bill language. And so I find it to be extremely disingenuous for them to come in, negotiate changes to the bill, make changes and ask for it, and then refuse to honor the bill, refuse to honor the law by saying that there's too much risk in the bill. Now we're not going to meet with anybody, which is what's going on. And I would hope that if we embark on a study like this, that the participants in the study take the study seriously, and that they make suggested changes. They're not just changes for the sake of changes, that they're actually gonna implement the law that we pass and not just request changes for the sake of changes. Because I feel like a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into a bill at their request in part, made changes at their request, and then they just said, well, we're not gonna honor the law anymore. And so I hope this process, if we engage in it, is a process that everybody actually takes seriously and honors. I don't believe Prince William County, which I represent 1/4 of, made any requests. If I'm not mistaken, I think they just opposed it the whole way through. And so I'm not surprised at the position they've taken. Stafford was the same. To the extent any local governments out there are listening, I hope that's the case. In terms of the legal advice, I've talked to the county attorney's office, and I don't understand the legal advice. It doesn't make any sense to me. The idea that a bunch of developers would sue the people who have to approve their projects on every single development is a great way to go out of business in the county you're operating in. And so it's not clear to me, the only explanation I can come up with as to why these local governments are refusing to have these proffer meetings is because they're basically trying to smoke the development community out. It's kind of like I got this stare down with my 10-year-old trying to get him to eat his spinach. So I'm not convinced that the current situation is really plausible, or not, I shouldn't say plausible, but it's motivated by genuine concern. So I would just hope that if we have some study, that it's meaningful, it results in something that people will actually honor, and it's not just spinning wheels, which is what I worry about given what I've seen from the last 2 years.
Thank you, Senator Serval. Briefly, Senator Marsden. We have a motion and we have a motion and a second. This would be the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I would, there we go. I would characterize Fairfax County's involvement with this bill much differently. Senator Serval, I was involved when the bill came over from the House side in bringing the county and the Home Builders Association together to solve continuing problems. And just because the county offers several amendments to a bill and some of them are granted doesn't mean that the final bill is something that they're happy with or pleased with or in any way can live with. And I think they've been very forthright about that. There's never a point in time where they said, give us this and we're all on board. So I wouldn't characterize Fairfax County's involvement that way. I think they still have some legitimate concerns. I still have some legitimate concerns, and I think we can solve those over the summer. But I think it's trying to speculate on their intent and as to why they're taking positions they do without having them here to testify about that is a little risky. So, but I would characterize their involvement somewhat differently. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just assure Senator Serval, the folks who are involved in this, their idea is not to simply come in and kind of stonewall, but to work cooperatively with the Home Builders Association and folks like that, and basically try to adjust according to the unintended consequences and try to get things moving smoothly again.
Senator Black and I can assure you we will give your bill a full hearing when we reconvene this committee in the summertime, I promise you. All right, no further discussion. Clerk, please open the roll. All those in favor of the motion record aye. All opposed, nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay. This matter is continuing, and we'll see you this summer, and looking forward to it, Senator Black.
I will look forward. I'd love to meet with these committees.
We're looking forward. Senator Reeves. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee will bring their attention to 993. Mr. Chairman, 993 is an attempt to rectify a bill that we passed in this committee that had to do with the exact same code section, 15.2.2259, when we passed it. And I'm pleased to tell the committee that when we passed that, several jurisdictions had done really well. But unfortunately, we have some jurisdictions now that have required pre-submission requirements to their approval process that negated the impact of the bill. So they found a workaround. And in some of the cases, they're not just simple pre-submission meetings with jurisdictional staff. They'll provide preliminary critiques of the plans without providing any written comments. As a result, under 15.2.2259, the review clock doesn't even start with that pre-submission meeting because it isn't considered an initial submission under that code. With the folks that I talked with, in one case, it took almost 9 months of preliminary meetings with the local jurisdiction before their application could even be submitted. That means some contractor, developer has 9 months of bills while we wait on the counties to do their work. That's the first part of the paragraph. And I think what's really more important, maybe than the 60 days to 45 days, and we suggest an extra 15 days to take off the clock. I'm not amenable to leaving it at 60, but I think the important language here is on 35 through 37. It says the local planning commission or other agents shall not delay the official submission of any proposed site plan of development by requiring pre-submission conferences, meetings, or reviews. I think that's where they've gotten around this. The other part of the bill, Mr. Chairman, is deleting the paragraph in 15.2.259. The edit is unnecessary. The statute already has provisions for incompleteness when you submit your initial plat. The jurisdictions to provide those comments listed, the deficiencies in the application that lead to the disapproval. This paragraph is kind of a workaround that allows them the ability to get out if an error or omission is discovered. So I don't think it really serves a purpose. As you can tell, going down in lines 81, 82, 91, and 92, that we adjusted the times to kind of crank the heat up on localities to get these things out, because quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that government understands the speed of business or having to carry a commercial note. And so it's that same rub that we often hear. How fast can government help us do that and still do their job? So, Mr. Chairman, that is the bill before us. And
Thank you, Senator Reeves.
yeah.
Thank you, sir, for that very excellent presentation. Are there any questions of the patron?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
My question is, on line 35, it says the local planning, and then it goes to line 36, planning commission or other agents shall not delay the official submission of any approved plat, site plan, or plan of development by requiring pre-submission conferences, meetings, or reviews. So the planning commission shall not delay the official submission. I didn't think right now they could delay the official submission. I mean, doesn't current law require that when an applicant files an application under that 4.1 section of our code, the county staff review it and determine if it's complete? And then once the county staff accepts the application, the clock starts ticking, and it doesn't matter what the planning commission does.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, Senator Favola. The challenge we have is now they have these, quote, pre-submission requirements where they're bringing them in and it's not official, and they're not giving an official written comments, but they're giving them verbal.
And that, Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question.
Senator Favola.
And these pre-submission conferences would take precedence over the current statute that says once the staff accept the application, the clock starts ticking, or you just want to be?
They are. They're preliminary having these meetings, and they're critiquing the plans, and they're providing no written comments. So then when you go to the official plan, now you've got that and those comments that you're trying to address before you even get to the written comments. So I'm just trying to close the gap on that, Mr. Chairman, to make sure that counties are doing what we intended them to do when we first passed this bill. And like I said, Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to put an undue amount of burden on localities either. And so if that extra 15 days is a real rub with some of the localities, I don't mind making it go back to 60. But what I do mind, Mr. Chairman, is this ability for them to have this authority to drag these folks out and drag the process out because we can't get it done.
Any further questions of the patron? Hearing none, is there anyone who, Senator McPike? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this bill? Yes, sir.
Stacking up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Joe Lurch with the Virginia Association of Counties. And,
Welcome.
We've been getting some concerns about the language that's been discussed so far. One thing I do want to point out, that I think the bill that Senator Reeves is referring to from a couple years ago, that dealt just with preliminary plats. This section of code only deals with final plats and site plans. And so I think that's a distinction there that's important to note. Some of the concerns obviously have been pointed about the number of days, that, this might have something to do, the issues that I've heard might have to do with the Planning Commission schedule. They may meet once a month. They may not be able to meet that 45-day deadline. In regard to not requiring a pre-application meeting of some kind, I do have questions for the patron. I'd stopped by a couple times, hadn't had a chance to find out where exactly the issue is coming from, or proponents of the bill, what the issue is that might be able to be addressed. I will tell you, in the experience of localities, they will hold these pre-application meetings with the fire marshal, with the VDOT official, to allow issues to be ironed out so that when an application is officially filed, there's a lot of things that could be corrected. So in our view, it's a useful process.
Mr. Lurch, though, can't you do that after they filed the
I think,
application?
yeah, well, that's why we're
I mean, if
confused
you're doing
about.
45 or 60 days, can't those meetings be held in that time?
I think they could. I mean, I just question the need for writing it in code, because it seems to be a voluntary thing that localities offer to applicants. I think once you file, they might have a normal development review process. I don't know of any localities that are particularly requiring a pre-application submission for a site plan or a record plat, and that's why I would love to talk to the proponents of the bill to see what the issue is, but to date, I haven't been able to get them.
Thank you, Mr. Lurch. He's to your left. He's right there, so you can talk to him then. Thank you. Yes, sir, please step up. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lurch.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Rick Randolph, and member of the Board of Supervisors in Albemarle County and former planning commissioner. I do want to talk about Senator Reed's bill, both from the standpoint of the 45 days for which a local planning commission shall act on a proposed plat site plan. Albemarle County, we go ahead and have a pre-planning commission meeting with the community, so a required community meeting. And the benefit of that from the standpoint of being either a supervisor or a planning commissioner is have an opportunity to really hear what the members of the community see in that proposed change, and to work with the developer to come up with a plan that is sensitive to the needs that the community identifies, so that there is the optimal opportunity for success for that application to move through the approval process. So that's critical. And if we move from 60 days to 45 days, we would probably need to eliminate that step in the process. I'd like to then also speak about moving from 45 days to 30 days on receipt of the plat. And I do think it's really important to maximize the opportunity for staff to operate in a manner where they are responsive, as Senator Reed wants them to be, to the urgency of the applicant to be subject to a thorough review in a time-sensitive manner. But the more you constrain the time period, the more you're imposing, in essence, a mandate on local government to operate within tighter and tighter strictures. In some communities, such as Albemarle, we have an adequacy of staff to address it. There may, however, be other communities in the Commonwealth, other counties, where they will be constrained to be able to try to meet that goal and objective. So I know and appreciate what Senator Reeves is trying to accomplish in terms of immediacy and responsiveness, but I don't feel that everyone necessarily has the capacity to do that. So I would urge you to think about that in terms of the universality of the law and how it will apply to all other communities.
Thank you,
Mr.
Supervisor,
Chairman.
and thank you for your service in local government. We appreciate that greatly. What does Fairfax believe about this?
Afternoon,
You
Mr.
love
Chairman.
this bill, don't you?
So, right. So my name is Chris Costa. I'm an assistant county attorney in Fairfax County. I would apologize first to Senator Reeves because I've spoken to him about others, but I've not had a chance to speak with him about this bill. We only have one objection. He has already anticipated it, and that is the timing. So with a volume of development that we have in our county, which we are very grateful for and want to embrace, we have meeting these time deadlines is tough for staff. When a plat or plan comes in, our engineers review it first. They give comments back, then those comments are addressed, and that process goes on. And once it's final, so that all the comments have been addressed, then it'll go in front of the Planning Commission, and all that has to happen within the 60 days. And if we don't meet that 60-day deadline, then at lines 61 through 63 under existing law, the failure of a local planning commission or other agent to approve or disapprove a resubmitted plat or plan within the time periods required by this section shall cause the plat or plan to be deemed approved. So what that means is that if we don't meet the deadline, it gets deemed approved, which so that doesn't delay a developer in that regard. And so what we're worried about is if you give us a tighter deadline, then our quality of our review will necessarily go down. And we're concerned about that, especially given some of the, high-rise developments and all those more intense developments that we have. As far as the, staff hasn't made any comments to me about the pre-submission meeting, but I can tell you that in my experience advising them and working with developers in our locality, people often want pre-submission meetings because anyone who files a plat or plan usually gets a comment back. If you have a pre-submission meeting with a draft plan, we can give you verbal comments before you even pay an application fee, which is what we do. And that way you can have your engineer make those changes and you've not incurred a cost at the county level at all. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Good to see you, Mr. Costa. Thank you for your kind words.
Michelle
Yes, ma'am.
Gowdy from the Virginia Municipal League. I just echo their comments.
Thank you.
Paul Drumright with Goochland County and echo the comments before us.
Thank you,
For
sir.
opposition.
Thank you for coming. Okay, Senator Reeves.
I understand what you're saying. Excuse me.
Senator Reeves.
Mr. Chairman,
Closing?
I can't make, well, I guess I can. It's my bill.
Well, Senator Reeves, if you'd like to make a change, I'm sure you have some people up here that would be happy to accommodate you.
Well,
If you'd make a
I
suggestion.
wouldn't mind striking 45 and going back to the original language. Anywhere we struck out times, back to the original times.
So, Senator Reeves, your suggested amendment, which would come from this committee, would be striking 45 and returning it to 60 days.
Yes, sir. Anywhere we struck the language and tried to tighten the timeline, I'd go back to the original timeline. But I
Jeff?
think the important language, as I said before, is
Jeff?
Mr. Chairman, I see about 6 different instances where the timeline has been shortened, in some cases from 60 to 45 and others from 45 to 30.
Hold on. Senator Reeves, understanding from council here, so you're talking about the 45s to 60?
anywhere
them
where
back
we
into 60?
anywhere we struck them down in the actual
Whether it had been 45 to 30 or
60 to 45 or 45 to 30, any of those that we struck on those various lines, changing back and then striking.
Jeff, can we do that? That seems to be unstriking. All right, do we have a motion to amend the bill in accordance with the patron's wishes? Motion, and there's a second. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Discussion, Senator Steph.
Mr. Chairman, I like the original bill the way it was. I think.
Shocking.
Imagine that. I think holding government accountable, and this bill did not restrict any pre-submittal conferences at all. I mean, they could still meet before the submittal and get whatever feedback they needed. There was no issues with that. I think this really is a great transparency bill and stops delays that currently we're seeing across the Commonwealth. But that's just my opinion.
Motion is second being made. There's discussion. Any further discussion on the amendment? All right. All in favor of the amendment as requested by the patron, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign? Nay. Uh-oh. All right, we're going to record the vote. Mr. Clerk, open the roll. Ayes would be for the amendment. Nays are against the amendment. Ooh, tough.
7 ayes, 6 nays.
That's amazing. All right, 7 ayes, 6 nays. The amendments are made. The bill is before us. Steph, if you move to PBI this, I'm really going to just, based on the time.
Move to PBI.
Well, come on. No, I'm just kidding. All right, he was kidding. So there's no motion on the floor. Is there a motion on the bill? Senate Bill 993.
Pass this fine bill, and hopefully we may be able to work out the time differences. And Mr. Chairman, after hearing some of the testimony today, I thought we may have been moving the other direction and taking the 60 to maybe 20 and the 45 maybe down to 15. But I thought it would be a great jobs bill. Anyways, with that, I'd like to make a motion to pass this fine bill.
The motion is to report Senate Bill 993. There is a second properly supported. Is there any further discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk open the roll. Please close the roll.
8 ayes, 5 nays.
8 yeas, 5 nays, and your bill is reported,
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Reeves.
I'm walking wounded.
Thank you, sir. Carry on. All right, Cree Deeds. Senator Deeds, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Deeds has now set a personal record and a committee record of having the most bills ever presented in Senate, in local government.
That's got to be a joke, Mr. Chair.
No, sir. No, we've looked it up. There's nobody else that's in this committee more than you are,
Oh,
sir.
my goodness. Well, these bills are all at the request of one local government or another. I just happen to have, I guess, 14 local governments, including the town.
Yes, sir. No, you're very prolific. We appreciate it.
That
It
681
keeps us busy, so, sometimes we're not, paid attention to. We like this.
681 at the request of Iron Gate, but they didn't get their advertising right on this, and so I'm going to ask you to strike the bill.
The patron is asking that Senate Bill 681 be stricken for lack of notice, not through anything that he did, error or omission on his part, but rather by the town of Iron Gate not doing that. And I still remind everyone here not to speed in Iron Gate.
That's right.
Might have some personal experience there. The construction's, yes. With Senator Carrico, we'll talk about that later. All right, is there a motion on the floor to strike? Do you want to carry this over, to continue the case, or just strike it?
Well, what if you strike it, I'll just reintroduce it
Yes,
next year.
yeah. Motion being made, is there a second? Second being properly supported. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, clerk, open the roll, please. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. And
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Senator Deeds, that bill is stricken.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The next bill that I want to bring up is Senate Bill 680. Now, this bill comes at the request of the Board of Supervisors of Highland County. It would allow them by ordinance to to levy a fee for emergency medical services. Now, Highland County has at least 3 really unique things about it, aside from breathtaking landscape and generous, kind, hardworking, independent-minded people. Number one, there are only 2,300 residents in Highland County. It has the distinction of being the least populated county east of the Mississippi. Number two, Highland County has the highest average altitude of any county east of the Rockies. Number three, more than 50% of the taxable real estate in Highland County is owned by people that don't live there. The people that live there have one of the lowest per capita incomes in the state. So it's really difficult to keep a tax rate on real estate that allows people from Highland County, young people, to buy property there and remain there and continue to live and work in beautiful Highland County. So they have to be creative. They still have services that they have to provide Highland County, and I've got a member of the Board of Supervisors here who can discuss this more fully than me. But this is not unique. They've come to this General Assembly before. They have the authority to levy a fee for waste disposal. But this is a way that they can raise money, not entirely on the backs of the people that own real estate there and that live in Highland County. This is unique. It's special legislation. It'll require 32 votes on the floor of the House, or the floor of the Senate, rather.
I've been there. It might be tough for you there. Right in the beginning of the session, you might recall.
Understand that.
I'll try to help. Any questions of the patron?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
So would this be a fee, say, for an ambulance or?
This will allow them to levy a fee per, well, I'm not sure exactly what they're thinking about, but I can, David Blanchard's from the Board of Supervisors is here.
I guess I have a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola. Well, did you get an answer to your first one?
Yeah,
No, but while we're
It was an
bringing-
interesting question. I want an answer to that.
I do too, but while he's up here, maybe he can answer my second question? Is
All
that
right,
okay?
compound question. Let's start with the first one.
Let's start with the first one.
Let's start with the first one.
The first answer to the first question, I'm David Blanchard. I am on the County Board of Supervisors. The answer to your first question is it's to prop up a blended paid volunteer rescue squad. So it's not, say, for a rescue squad, a unit, but it's for paid individuals, paid staff.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
I mean, I am going to support the bill because I'm in favor of giving, local government more options for raising revenue to fund their services. But I always I'm always concerned about those who may not have the ability to pay. So what happens if somebody?
Yeah, there are abilities for people to, if they don't have the income, that they can.
Could this be waived? I
They,
mean,
it can be waived.
and I guess
Yes.
follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Favola.
Thank you. So the Board of Supervisors would have the authority when they're adopting this ordinance to determine under what conditions it would be waived and where they would charge a fee, what that fee schedule would be, and all of these questions would be open to public comment and, of
Yes.
course, adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and you're elected by individuals, so you're held accountable. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Favola. Senator DeStef.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dietz, I've got a quick question on how this would operate. So in the way this is written, as I understand it, there would be a fee for, let's say, using an ambulance. So let's say it's $150 to use the ambulance. But we're going to turn it over to, let's say, the power company to collect that fee, correct? The way it's kind of written in here, there'd be the opportunity to do that?
And I wasn't sure exactly what, I mean, are you talking about levying a fee on use of ambulance or a fee per property, or what are you doing?
A fee per household.
Per household.
Per household.
So-
So it would be collected like as part of the electric bill or the light bill or utility bill of some sort on per household.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Deeds, so basically, so I really liked the bill before, but I'm getting a little warm right now with a fever. So basically, we're gonna tax for the use of an ambulance because we talked about paid rescue squad. It's not the volunteer, because you wouldn't pay your volunteers.
Correct.
So we're saying that for the paid rescue squad, that we're gonna put a fee on top of somebody's electric bill. And if they don't pay this fee because it's an increase in their electric bill, because they can't for some reason, then we shut their lights off because they don't pay the fee for the, I think this is kind of,
Mr. Chairman,
maybe I'm
that's,
confusing how the county is going to implement this fee. If you can walk me through how that
Senator
works,
Deeds, we're
please.
talking about maybe $1-2 a month, that kind of thing.
$1 or
is that right?
$2 a month. I don't think this, Mr. Chair, I don't think this is intended to failure to pay this fee. I don't see as a means for allowing a person's lights to be cut off. We are talking about $1 or $2 a month. The problem in Highland County, you got 2,200 people. You only have so many sources of revenue and so many sources of volunteers. So you end up doing what you can to provide the services. So we're talking. I mean, I don't know. I've not had any conversation at all with the county about how much of a fee they're talking about. And that's part of the reason why I wanted you to come up and explain what it is, but I just can't imagine it's going to be that much money or it's going to cause anybody's lights to.
One follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. And
Senator DeStef.
if I could, what's the average electric bill in the county?
You know, I don't know.
You've got
The county is, you know, I have a farmhouse in Bath County, the county below that, and I'm on, my electrical provider is the provider for probably at least 60% of Highland County, and I probably, I probably spend $100 a month even in bad weather. But I don't use a lot of electricity. I don't.
Well, and if I may, I think the senator was giving the county some options of how to levy this fee. We currently have a trash fee that goes out, I believe, twice a year. It's a $150 rate. Say a contractor is charged more, but it's a base rate of $150, and that's what we're sort of looking at it. I think the senator was just giving us more options with piggybacking within an electric bill. I would have to say at first glance on that, I would just assess a fee the same way we're assessing our trash fee at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Deeds, I'm just trying to get to the point of
Senator
the last
Staff.
line of the bill where it says that it shall not exceed the rate, which shall set the rate not to exceed 5% of the amount of fees due and collected. What's the 5%
Mr.
of?
That's the
Chair,
commission.
Senator Stepp, that's the commission.
It's commission.
If they decide to use a utility bill to collect the fee, all that sentence says is that they can
Of
receive a
5%
5%
of the
commission
fee
on what they
that they collect.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Chase, please.
So a fee on a fee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Deeds, just a quick comment here. I guess my question is, it looks like we're imposing a fee, which I honestly feel as a resident, we are taxed to death, we're feed to death. And I know a lot of my constituents in Chesterfield, I don't know how it is in Highland County, but they just feel like they're feed to death. Is there any reason that this expense couldn't be covered in the current budget?
Matt, Mr. Chair, Senator Chase, I guess it could be, but it would involve raising taxes. And Highland County, which, as I said, has one of the lowest per capita incomes in the state, isn't like Chesterfield. It hadn't grown like Chesterfield, like gangbusters. Highland County's population of about 110 years ago reached its peak at about 6,800 people. Now there are 2,200 people there. More than 50% of the land is owned by people that don't live in Highland County. The only way to basically keep Highland County people in Highland is to keep taxes as low as possible, and that's what they're trying to do. Sure, they could do it that way. They could raise the taxes but the effect of that, I'm afraid, and the board's, I think, afraid that the effect of that would be to drive people out of the county.
If I may.
Senator Chase.
Our industry is land, agriculture. We don't have a diversified tax base like other communities have. And so we don't have land use. So the agricultural end of it always bears the brunt of any tax increase. Yeah, I'm with you. Fees, taxes, it just always seems to go up. But on our end, the bills always go up too. So
Supervisor, is it fair to say, though, that you run, like most of our rural counties, on volunteer services?
Yes, sir.
And those have cost associated, even though the people that run the ambulances and the fire trucks do so out of a love for their county rather than for compensation. Is that correct?
Right, correct.
And so then you have dispatchers that you have to pay and other persons. And when you have a volunteer and non-professional outfit of EMTs and firemen, there's no other way except passing the boot to raise money for these things, is there?
all of rural Virginia is facing this problem of how to prop up.
And Supervisor,
blend
these
this.
services, whether they may be divided up by perhaps precincts or magisterial districts, or however you do it, are available to everyone in Highland County, whether they live there or own land there and visit there. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you. Any further questions? McPike, Senator McPike.
Mr. Chairman, question for the patron. This would be similar to what we already have in the books and many localities do in terms of a fire levy. Because you would indicate a fire levy because it helps the whole community. This is a very similar provision. Is that correct?
It sounds like it to me, yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator McPike. Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, I just wanted to point out that the first thing that would have to, this is not going to be a mandatory fee on any utility services. The first thing that has to happen is the Board of Supervisors, if they would have to have a public hearing, they would have to have an ordinance to adopt the fee to begin with. Then if they want to collect the fee through some other mechanism rather than having people directly provide it to the county, they would have to enter into a contract with a utility or any other company. So it would be a company voluntarily agreeing to collect and remit this fee for them. And to the extent anyone is concerned about whether or not someone could have their utilities cut off for not paying this fee, there's a whole line of regulations that the state corporation has put in place to prevent services from being cut off for failure to pay fees that are instead of the actual base rate for your service. So I think this is just one tool to give to a locality that is cash strapped, that has very few tools available to raise money to pay for a service that I think we all agree is a vital service to this community.
Excellent testimony, Senator. Senator Deeds, you should have led with that.
Absolutely.
We'd be already on to the next bill of yours. All right, is there anyone who wants to speak who is opposed to the bill? Or anyone who really wants to talk in support of the bill still? I saw you kind of wiggle. Welcome.
I wasn't going to stand up here and oppose it. Mr. Chairman, Ed Rhodes with Virginia Association of Volunteer Rescue Squads, and we wholeheartedly support this bill. And we always work with our member agencies, of which there are 300 of them, and we know the situation in Howland County, and we make every effort to get them the training.
Thank you, sir, and thank your association and all those people for what they do.
Mr.
They're
Chairman.
critical where we are, where I live.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favela.
I move that we report the bill.
Hold on, let's see. Senator DeStefano, do you have one more question?
Mr. Chairman, I've got one last question and concern. And the way I understand this, whether we go through one of the services, then we're charging a fee on a fee. And the one thing I remember from my time on local government, our taxes are tax deductible. So when you pay your taxes, you can deduct it on your taxes. Fees are not tax deductible. So dollar for dollar, I would rather pay a tax than a fee. I'd rather not pay either, but dollar for dollar, I'd rather pay a tax.
Mr. Chairman,
I haven't heard a question yet, Senator Steff, and that might be better for a discussion.
I appreciate that concern. I mean, I think some changes were made on the deductibility of taxes, real estate taxes, in the tax bill that passed this past December.
Which is now capped.
It's now capped, so.
Right.
All right, the bill is before us. We operate by motion.
I move to report.
Motion being properly made to report the Senate Bill 680 and a second supporting it. Is there any discussion on that? I regret saying that. Seeing none, clerk, open the roll. Clerk, close the roll.
8 ayes, 5 nays.
8 ayes, 5 nays. The bill is reported, Senator. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. The next bill I've got comes from Albemarle County in Charlottesville. It's a joint request, 677 is what it would simply.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 677.
Senate Bill 677 simply adds language to Section 15.2-1535 to allow members of local or members of elected governing bodies to be appointed to a local convention, visitors, or tourism board, authority, or agency, adding to the list of 16 public bodies to which members of local governing bodies may already be appointed. Members of local governing bodies are prohibited from being elected or appointed to other public offices unless expressly authorized by law, so that's why the bill's here. This proposal would give local governing bodies at their option the authority to appoint their own members to these boards that are promoting local and regional economic development through tourism and tourist attractions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions of the patron? Motion being made to report this bill and a second properly supporting it. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll, please. Those in favor of the motion, please record their vote. Aye. Those opposed, no. And close the roll.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
12 ayes, 0 nays. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
We can add Senator Lewis to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, ayes 13, noes 0. Senate Bill 677 reports.
Okay.
You're doing pretty good here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last bill I've got is Senate Bill 684, and that again comes at the request of Albemarle County, and it speaks to any county outside of Planning District 8 that's adopted the county executive form of government. Planning District 8 is Northern Virginia, the only county outside of Northern Virginia that's adopted the county executive form of government is Albemarle, and it asks for the authority to adopt an ordinance to require removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks. Albemarle is looking for this basically to remove snow and ice in its aging suburban neighborhoods as an incentive to improve the livability of these areas. Some of these areas are older, right around Charlottesville. The county there are a couple of supervisors here. They've pledged to have extensive public discussions with any neighborhoods being considered prior to adoption and implementation of any ordinance. And an ordinance, of course, would require a public hearing, and they'd have to go through the whole process. So,
Senator Deeds, what would be in your mind, and I know this is already established in the code, but for Albemarle County, what would be the reasonable criteria or requirements for the removal of snow or ice? I mean, what's a reasonable criteria? Do you have to get it down till there's nothing there? You have to. ice melt,
Of course, that's.
use a certain size shovel.
That's existing language.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. So in the terms of what Albemarle County wants to do here, what do they think is reasonable criteria or requirements for
Well,
removal of snow or
we've got
ice?
a couple of members of the Board of Supervisors, and they could probably address.
I'd rather hear you, Senator Deeds, because I think it's more interesting.
I appreciate it very much.
Challenge accepted. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm Ann Malik from Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. It's not that we disagree with the criteria in the state ordinance. We would like the ability to actually require the snow to be removed, period. And Albemarle County is recently urbanizing in the last 40 years, so we're growing up into teenagehood now. We're not as grown up as the Northern Virginia counties who can already require your sidewalks to be shoveled. But we have major highways, major secondary roads with sidewalks on both sides built by developers or by community at great expense, which develop 4 feet of snow in the sidewalk, and the people walk in the street. And this is a real safety problem. We do hope that you will support us to be able to manage this better than we are doing today.
So, so my question, ma'am, would be reasonable criteria in your mind and requirements for removing the snow or ice is total removal of the snow or ice, not a speck of snow on that
We have not
sidewalk.
discussed it, but if it were passable and people could walk in a few inches instead of 4 feet that they have to climb over, that would be a big improvement.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
The point I was trying to make was that this is about removal of snow. The criteria is already existing.
No, I don't think, though, that it defines what reasonable criteria is. So I'm sure reasonable criteria in Northern Virginia may be different than it is in Albemarle County if passed.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Thank you. That's the point. I think the point being discussed here is the local governing body will do this by ordinance, as it says right here on line 15. So whenever local governments do something by ordinance, they have a public input process, and they'll discuss issues like the timing by which the snow has to be removed, or any other criteria. Does it have to be a walkable path, or does it have to be 8 inches? Having come from local government, I remember having these lovely discussions when we had the snow removal ordinance before us. So all of these things are hammered out in the local ordinance, and I think this is, again, a very reasonable request, and I move that we report the bill.
I have others that have asked to talk. One other, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Deeds, I think one of my probably biggest concerns is that we're talking about public sidewalks and having the owner or other person in charge of any occupied property. Yes. I just, I appreciate the intent of the bill, but what if somebody's disabled and they can't get to it? We're going to hold them accountable for not clearing those sidewalks. I mean, I think if the local government takes this up, I mean, that locality decides to do that on their own, but I feel like we're kind of forcing people to clean their sidewalks. Am I missing something here?
Mr. Chair, Senator Chase, I don't know that you're missing anything. I think this is already authority we've granted some people, and this is already authority the state has. We're just saying that Albemarle County can pass an ordinance that set rules for the removal of snow on public walks.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. May I respond to the
Well, first, just for clarification, and I think in this statute, which is already established, if you look on line 19 of Senator Deeds' bill, such ordinance includes reasonable timeframes for compliance and reasonable exceptions for handicapped and elderly persons and those otherwise physically incapable of meeting the criteria, this magic unknown criteria right now, and requirements for such removal. So I think that addresses that.
Right.
Did that take care of your issue, Senator Favola?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that, again, the local ordinance is going to address that. They'll define reasonable. They'll have some exceptions for individuals who are not physically able to actually shovel the snow. I would just say in Arlington County, we created a volunteer cadre of folks who went out and shoveled the snow for those who were not able. So all of these questions are really going to be addressed through the promulgation of this local ordinance. And there'll be extensive public comment on it, and the local government will actually be charged with enforcing the ordinance. There's really nothing hidden here that should give us pause. I think we should enthusiastically pass this.
Senator McPike.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out to the committee just a point of information that cities, the 38 independent cities across Virginia already have this authority and use it. They've established, well-established policies for years on this, had these sort of community implementation debates and tweaks. During blizzards, they've had to suspend the rules because they really realize they can't reasonably achieve the time periods. All these things have sort of been debated over our cities over, I don't know how many years, but it's pretty well established practice over across many jurisdictions and support the bill.
And frankly, that's the issue. In Charlottesville already has this authority. The urban ring around Charlottesville is basically just like Charlottesville in makeup. It's the same kind of, the neighborhoods are older, and you really can't tell when you're in the county or the city. And that's essentially where I see this. I mean, I haven't heard that from the Board of Supervisors, but it seems to me that's probably where this would be enacted.
Senator Sturtevant.
Mr. Chairman, this is a question maybe for Council or Senator Deeds, maybe you know. Who is presently liable if they're injured on a public sidewalk? Is it the county or is it the homeowner? And does this legislation shift liability?
Well, if I'm the lawyer, I'm probably going to sue everybody involved, everybody I can think of.
Nobody's liable in this you never win them.
That's right. You can't win them. They're very hard. Right. Very hard to win.
Does this shift liability to the homeowner, though, that if they have not adequately shoveled their sidewalk, that they can then be subject to a slip and fall lawsuit?
Well, I don't know if it shifts liability to them. I think they're probably going to get sued anyway. But I think it's certainly it may well ease the county's burden or the local government's burden and the local taxpayers' burden, I guess.
Okay, let's
Mr.
shovel this
Chairman.
bill one
Mr.
way or the other. Senator
May I make a
Chase.
motion, please?
I made a
I
motion
moved
The
earlier.
motion on the floor, I don't believe I heard a
Substitute
second.
motion.
Hold on, I haven't had a second yet. Just calm down.
I
Motion
have-
has been made to report the bill, and there is a second.
Substitute motion,
Substitute motion is
PBI.
to pass the bill by indefinitely. Is there a second? Second being made. All right, so the primary motion, the substituted motion is to pass the bill by indefinitely. Any discussion on that? Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Well, yep, now you can.
4 ayes, 9 nays.
4 ayes, 9 nays. The substitute motion to PBI is defeated. So we go back to the primary motion, which is to report. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, clerk, please open the roll. Oh, Cree.
9 ayes, 4 nays.
9 ayes, 4 nays. People will be shoveling their sidewalks in Albemarle County thanks to Senator Deeds, everybody. Put your hands together for Senator Deeds. Whew, who needs a break? Huh? Okay. Next in the queue, we have Senator Edwards. Senator Edwards.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill
821
deals with the New River Valley Emergency Communications Regional Authority. Back in 2010, the 4 entities in the New River Valley, in Montgomery County, the town of Blacksburg, the town of Christiansburg, and Virginia Polytechnical Institute and State University, known affectionately as the Hokies, came together, all 4 entities, and created an authority to provide 911 dispatch and emergency communication services. It's about almost 100,000 people that they cover. And their formula for paying for the budget of $3.3 million has been, when it was set up, a fourth, and a fourth. So everybody paid a fourth. They would like to change the formula for allocating responsibility for the payment. And what they want to do is to provide that the funding allocation methodology would be based on services used by each locality. And they have a computer system, they can do that. And that's what they all want to do. So that's all it does. It's very simple. Elizabeth Hooper here is from Virginia Tech, and she would like to say
Any
a
questions
word
of
in
the
favor.
patron? Any questions
Yeah,
for the
any
patron? Ms. Hooper, welcome.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Hooper with Virginia Tech. We appreciate the patrons' willingness to carry this legislation forward. I do have resolutions with me from the town of Christiansburg, the town of Blacksburg, Montgomery County, and Virginia Tech's Board of Visitors supporting the legislation. I'm happy to try and answer any questions the committee or you, Mr. Chairman, may have. I do believe there was a substitute that will match
All right, let's get that in proper form.
Delegate Nick Rush, who's carrying the bill for us in the House.
Okay.
So with that, happy to try and answer any questions, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Hooper. And if you want to distribute those, are those to be received by the clerk or distributed to our?
I believe the clerk has them, sir.
Okay, great. Let's get the bill in proper form. Is there a motion on the substitute? Second? And second being properly made after the motion is supported. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment in the nature of a substitute, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. And the substitute is before us. Are there any questions for Ms. Hooper? Well, when this committee is passive, Senator Edwards, it either means they're sleepy or they don't hate your bill.
Either that or they don't care.
Doesn't have snow removal involved or leaving abandoned cars in any area. So, all right, motion made to report. Oh, you explained the substitute, didn't you, Senator Edwards? I mean, I think you did.
That's what it does.
That's
It
what
just changes the funding formula, and they're all happy in the New River Valley to do it that way.
Okay. I believe there's a motion to report. I didn't hear a second. Second being properly made. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, clerk open the roll.
This is a substitute.
This is to report the substitute.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Senator, your bill report, Senate Bill 821.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, Ms. Hooper, for coming by. We know you're usually in ed and health and finance, so it's nice to see you in local government every now and then. All right. Don't you like it when Senator Edwards is quick? All right, let's see. Who's in the queue? Senator Obenshain? Senator Peak? Oh, Senator Obenshain. Sorry, new guy. Senator Obenshain.
Oh, mine's so fast. Yeah, mine's very fast.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr.
Quick.
Chairman.
Senator Peak, welcome. You have Senate Bill 458.
458. Brought this on behalf of Goochland County, which I'm proud to say was just recently voted the most outstanding county in the entire United States of America. Is Mr. Drumright? Yes, he is still here from Goochland County, so quite an honor. This is a zoning bill.
Okay.
And very minor changes to allow the zoning board for the county to include what's already been approved in prior zoning attempts and proffers. And it also allows them to accept proffers that might be included in
Use the P word here.
proffers. And I understand there may be a proffer party this summer.
There is going to be a proffer party.
And so I am
And you're invited.
aware of the proffer party. That's why I thought this might be fast.
And I am buying in that one. Yes, I'm buying that time.
So, proffer party.
Proffer party. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So does anyone here on the committee know what his bill is about? All right. Would you like to ask questions of the patron? Questions, patron?
Can we move the bill to the proper party?
Is that what you think it is? Motion being made to carry this bill over to the proffer party, the summer's proffer party.
Goochland's aware of that party.
And congratulations, Goochland is beautiful. Go Goochland. So the motion being made to carry over, continue to the summer work of this committee at the proffer party. Is there any discussion on that? The motion second probably be made, no discussion. All in favor, please open the roll, clerk. Welcome to the proffer party, man.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays, and we'll see you this summer, Senator Peak. Gosh, it's going to be like old times and stuff. We are. It's just... Senator Obenshain, Senator, we took care of one of your bills, which I believe you asked to be stricken. Is that right? Oh,
I did.
Okay, you're scaring me there. Senate Bill 972.
Speaking of old times, Mr. Chairman,
This bill is Senate Bill 972, and this is an issue that came before this committee, and Bill reported out and was signed into law.
This was the
I think it
mulch
was
bill,
last
wasn't it?
year or 2 years ago.
Not forbidding mulch. I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
that's right. And, it pains me to be in this position. The fire department for the city of Harrisonburg feels very strongly about this, and so do other constituents on the other side. And for me, this is an issue about fundamental fairness. For them, I know it's a life safety issue. But I think that we can balance this issue in a way that makes sense for everybody. The city of Harrisonburg adopted an ordinance several years ago that essentially prohibited commercial owners of commercial multifamily residential dwellings from using mulch as landscaping material. It's the only city in Virginia, only locality in Virginia to do that. It didn't go through the normal building code process. And we passed legislation that essentially said you've got to go through the process. You can't do that. And I thought that it was very clear. City of Harrisonburg came back and redrafted the ordinance and did a better job than apparently I did, and crafted an ordinance that circumvented what I believe was the intention of the General Assembly. The apartment owners in Virginia, apartment owners in Harrisonburg filed suit, challenged the legality of the ordinance that was passed by the city of Harrisonburg, and the court ruled that the city had effectively threaded the needle and had crafted legislation that survived scrutiny and prohibited owners of multifamily dwellings from using mulch as ground covering. And what this bill does is it simply goes back and attempts to establish the position of the General Assembly that you can't adopt these ordinances, at least going back. And this bill essentially treats it as a vested right. If you had a certificate of occupancy for property as of January 1 of this year and had a landscape plan that was approved and built your property and have mulch, the city and no city can go back and pass an ordinance that requires those holders of a certificate of occupancy to change. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think that this does what we tried to do in the previous legislation. It does not undo the ordinance that Harrisonburg has, but under the ordinance that they have, they can prosecute apartment owners for a Class 1 misdemeanor and seek jail should they use mulch, have used mulch, maintain mulch on their property. So just really respectfully submit that this is not it's not appropriate, and would ask the committee to report this bill. I think there's a substitute, which I would ask.
And Senator Marshall wants to know, what about mulch oil? Mulch oils don't contain any of the toxic mulch stuff. Was Harrisonburg have a problem with that?
He's brought me along, so I'm with him. I'm down with that.
Motion being made to accept the amendment in the nature of a substitute in a second. Is there any discussion on the substitute? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The substitute is before us. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of it?
I think there are a number of people who would like to
Santa
speak
Claus.
in favor.
Oh, Mr. Dick.
Santa Claus.
Well, mulch is made out of Christmas trees, so does the city hate Christmas?
Absolutely not, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
just checking on it.
So I'm going to try to streamline this discussion this afternoon. I'm speaking on behalf of a number of groups, and let me just state that for the record.
Yes, sir.
It's the Virginia Apartment Management Association, which is my client on this particular matter, the Apartment and Office Building Association, the Home Builders Association of Virginia, the Northern Virginia Apartment Association, the Virginia Agribusiness Council, the Manufactured and Modular Home Association, the Virginia Realtors, Virginia Retail Merchants, and the Virginia Retail Federation. So the reason that all these groups are concerned about this is because it affects, the Harrisonburg ordinance affects every office, every hotel, motel, restaurant, apartment community, any business property in the city of Harrisonburg. And the concern is, and what this bill simply does is, as a matter of law, generally when localities adopt an ordinance that changes the rules in the future for something, it doesn't apply retroactively. All this legislation does is to say that there's a grandfather clause. And if the locality approves an ordinance and says, or approves a particular property and says, you've got a CO and you're approved to put mulch in, and then you spend a couple $100,000 to do it, then they can't come back with an ordinance and turn around and say that you've got to spend money to take it out. That's the essence of it. I understand very well, and I participated in city council discussions and the trial. I understand very well that this is well-intentioned and motivated by the city to protect life safety. There's a problem with college students flicking cigarette butts in the mulch beds, and we understand that. What the judge's decision said was that this enabling authority, if you will, under the fire code and under Senator Obenshain's bill from 2 years ago, applies to any locality in the Commonwealth. So any locality in the Commonwealth could adopt an ordinance to effectively allow arrest of the property owner with jail time up to 12 months if they, in the Harrisonburg case, the way the ordinance was amended, basically it's to allow you, they say, okay, we don't make you remove the mulch, but if you replenish the mulch and protect your plant materials that we approved you putting in, then under that circumstance, you're subject to arrest. So that's, to me, a very common sense kind of thing. All we're asking for is a grandfather clause, and that's what this bill does. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Dix, any questions for Chip Dix?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
Question for Mr. Chip Dix.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I've got the Harrisonburg City Ordinance right here, and it says, you stated that they would have to remove materials. It says, in fact, they don't. They can keep it in place.
So, Mr. Chairman,
in the ordinance.
I say to
Can you
Senator
clarify
McPike,
that statement?
Certainly. I've got a copy of the ordinance with me, and what it says is the original ordinance said that you had to remove mulch and put in a non-combustible material for landscape cover. When Senator Obenshain's bill passed, the city amended its ordinance, and it said you don't have to remove the mulch, but you cannot replenish any mulch. So therefore, under that circumstance, the plant materials that you have, if you don't have some landscape cover material and you don't replenish it at some point, your plants are going to die. So at that point, you've got a risk of the investment you made in plants and the aesthetics of your property. And the question is, under that circumstance, why shouldn't you be able to at least replenish what the city approved putting in the first place?
I wish some of the plants in my yard would die because I haven't mulched them in years, but it's only 18 inches as I understand it. Is that correct?
Senator
From
McPike.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I would say under the current ordinance in the city of Harrisonburg, which under the judge's decision, they could change that ordinance at any time based upon the authority according to the judge. So the 18 inches is in the current ordinance. Yes, sir.
Senator McPike, follow up? Good. Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to speak or ask a question of either the patron or Mr. Dix? Seeing none, is there anyone who wants to else who wants to speak in support? Is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition to? Welcome, Captain.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Ian Bennett. I'm the fire chief for the city of Harrisburg, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief, for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Harrisburg has a combustible landscape problem. That's why we're here. Over the last 9 years, we've had almost 300 mulch fires resulting in well over $1 million worth of damage. These are particularly dangerous fires because they progress rapidly up the side of a building, through the soffit, into the attic, and burn down on unsuspecting occupants. They have no idea the fire is happening. Fortunately, most of these fires have been through the day for us, so people are asleep or gone, and we haven't had any serious injuries. We're obviously concerned about a fire at night, especially with the JMU students that are occupy these structures, and the outcome would be completely different. The city did pass an ordinance April 2015 They were talking about the 18-inch mulch, the 18-inch buffer zone between the combustible landscaping and the combustible siding. The 18-inch was chosen. It's a standard. Department of Forestry uses it. That's why the 18 inches was chosen for that. That's a national standard for that distance. As far as plant material, typically you don't plant stuff that close to the building and interferes with the foundation. So plants are really not an issue in that period there. This does apply to all multifamily and commercial properties. Senate Bill 736 was introduced, and basically all that told it is we couldn't retrofit. There was nothing about going through the fire code or any of that. That's not what it addressed. It said we couldn't retrofit. So we did adopt a new ordinance in April of 2016 to say we couldn't mulch refit. And Senator McPike's exactly right. You just can't replenish the mulch. You don't have to do anything. It costs nothing and takes no action to comply with our current ordinance. You just can't put any new mulch within or combustible landscaping within that 18-inch zone right there. In December 2016, the city was sued. Department Managers Association sued us. Just a few weeks ago, the Circuit Court of Rockingham County upheld the city on all 7 counts. Basically said the ordinance was legal. It complied with 2797 of the state code, the statewide fire prevention code. It met all other fire and building codes, and it also met Senate Bill 736. So those are the main contentions, and they upheld the city on all different counts. The bill before you would discredit the court's decision in this case. The structure and intent of the statewide fire prevention code is for localities to take care of local fire problems, and that's what we're doing here. The bill is an unwarranted prohibition of a local ordinance that is just, and it's already been proven that way. And basically, we believe that this issue falls within the statewide fire prevention code. This is not a zoning or vested right issue. This is a fire code issue. One interesting note, there's a national initiative right now. The Vinyl Siding Institute convened a meeting in 2016 with a bunch of stakeholders to look at the combustible landscape fire phenomenon. Some of these stakeholders were the National Association of Home Builders, various vinyl siding and other siding type manufacturers, some insurance companies, underwriters, laboratory, there was fire chiefs, there was International Association of Firefighters, and they were to look at this problem. What is the combustible landscape problem, the fire problem? And as we stand here today, there's a general consensus among all these groups that there is work being done to bring code proposals forward to the International Code Council, which will allow a national approach to dealing with fires with combustible landscaping up against combustible siding. So they're working on that thing right now at the national level. So passage of this bill could very likely set up Virginia as a clear model of conflict with national fire and building codes in the very near future. We're joined by the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association and the Virginia Fire Prevention Association in its opposition to this legislation. The bill would jeopardize the safety of not only the citizens of Harrisonburg, but the entire Commonwealth and result in increased property damage. One other point that keeps to be made is, we're going to take you to jail for putting mulch down. That's not the way the system works. It is Class 1 misdemeanor, and that's to mirror every other offense in the fire code. All offenses in the fire code are Class 1 misdemeanors. That's why this is made. We don't take people to jail just because you put mulch down. There's a series of process with notice violations and summons and goes through that. So just to clear that up, that's not how business works.
Chief, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
In your area there, do you have a law also that you can't have sticks, leaves, underbrush in that same area?
We do not. The problem.
But you would admit that they catch fire as well, right?
Not the same way, and that's the problem with combustible landscape like mulch and that type of material. You can put grass there. Grass catches fire and it goes, it's flash. Sticks take a while to catch. They don't fester for a while. And that's the problem with mulch. Mulch can be used they can self-ignite. When you put certain thickness of mulch down in certain climatic conditions, it can self-ignite. When you put a cigarette in there, you don't see it right away. It festers for a while and then moves towards the combustible siding. So there are different types of fires is why this creates a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
All right,
Any question for the Chief?
Mr. Chairman. Down here.
Senator Servo.
Sorry. This is a preface. I feel like Phil Connors in Groundhog Day. I think we
Yes, sir.
second or third year in a row we've heard mulch now. And I understand that you all believe that this is college students smoking or somebody smoking on their balconies. I'm not clear why this seems to be a particularly acute problem in Harrisonburg and not anywhere else in the state. I would think there's plenty of people smoking on their balconies around the whole state, not just JMU students. So do you have any thoughts about?
Yes, sir. It is actually becoming a state problem. Loudoun County is another one that has compiling statistics. 14-month period, they have 80 fires with tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. One of the problems is the way we report fires. When you get a building fire, the code is a building fire. you have to really drill down to figure out the material first ignited to see that it's a mulch fire. And we're just coming on board with statistics and programs that can do that. So it is becoming a problem throughout the state. It's a significant problem in Virginia, or in Harrisonburg, Virginia, because of the JMU population. We use combustible siding in most of our construction of those types of facilities, and they happen to use mulch. The climatic conditions are perfect. It has to be, certain kind of climate, humidity, that kind of stuff that helps those fires develop. And we have all those factors in Harrisonburg. So we are one of the worst ones in the state.
Okay, Senator McPike, here we go.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chief, you referenced a fire. Is it the April 10th, 2014 fire?
Yeah, Chestnut Ridge, yes, sir.
That there was the department
Yes, sir.
that had the mulch catch on fire, then run up the combustible siding?
Yes, sir.
It appears it also ran the attic.
It did, and by the time we got there, it was running the attic, yes, sir.
And can you describe to the committee what happens when a fire runs an attic?
Basically,
And typically, do those have also detection in those attics?
it does not. Even a sprinkler building in these types of buildings, it's called a 13R system. It's a residential system, so they don't require detection or any kind of sprinkler suppression system in the attic. So when it runs up the side, it runs through the attic and then it'll burn down through. So the people inside have absolutely no idea unless it's reported from the outside. And detection is, sprinklers don't help in that particular case because they burn completely down. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have another
Yes, sir.
question.
Senator Servo.
Chief, given that you said that this problem, it seems to be occurring in other places as well, I mean, has the city considered pursuing some kind of an amendment to the statewide fire prevention ordinance or code instead of trying to do this only in the city?
It's really not, the statewide, the structure and intent of the statewide prevention code is just that. As long as you don't affect the manner and use and basically the construction of a building, excuse me, it gives the locality the ability to do that. So the code is set up to do that already right now. It's not really necessary. So we have that ability to make those ordinances.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you. Chief, what is generally, when does mulch become a problem? At what thickness does it?
It varies as far as if there's an ignition source, a cigarette or something in it, it really doesn't matter the thickness. The self-ignition, which is much rarer, is relatively at least a couple inches and it's relatively new. And the climatic conditions have to be right. So self-ignition is a little more particular about how the fire starts. It really doesn't matter from the standpoint of an ignition source being introduced.
Yeah, follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I was really interested. That's the first question. When does mulch become a problem? When they stay out past their curfew and they drink. Yes, Senator Marsden.
There are two purposes, I would assume, to mulch. One is appearance, and the other is the providing and maintaining moisture for plants. Would there be a problem here if the appearance could be maintained through a very, very thin layer of mulch to keep the appearance that wouldn't require the retrofit and what have you? Would that be a satisfactory direction to go in to ameliorate this problem while at the same time not requiring people to spend tens of thousands of dollars to retrofit projects?
Well, first of all, they don't have to spend any money to retrofit to make this, to meet the ordinance. It costs nothing. You just don't put anything down in there if that's what you choose. So there is no cost that has to be borne by the owner for that. As far as that thickness, any kind of mulch, if you want to make it look good, it would have to cover it, and I don't think that would be good. And I'm not sure how we would enforce that. Is it half inch, quarter inch? I think that would be a nightmare from the enforcement side.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, actually, it's from Loudoun County.
Yes.
And I don't know if maybe it's for the patron. I know on line 117, we talk about landscape cover materials. And then we mention it again on line 121. And Loudoun is wondering, is landscape cover materials defined anywhere? And would that be debatable?
Substitute. Mr. Chair, Senator Favola, landscape cover materials is defined on lines 120 through 122 in the substitute.
So it's mulch, wood chips, rock, stone. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Favola. All right, we have a big crowd. Look, I don't want to spend too much time on the mulch issue, but please step forward. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, if you just quickly.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is CJ Stolley. I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association. We oppose this bill for the same safety concerns both Senator Obenshain and Chief Bennett mentioned. And we, yes.
Stolley?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You all are everywhere, man.
And we're multiplying.
My God. Run!
And by adding a grandfather clause to continue allowing an unsafe maintenance and use condition, we just don't feel is in the interest of public safety.
Let me ask you a question. Isn't there flame retardant material you can put on top of mulch? And there's stuff you can spray?
Well, in my opinion, you could take a rake and pull it back 1.5 feet and have the same effect.
Okay, but my question is, isn't there flame retardant stuff you can spray on the mulch?
I'm not sure the answer to your question,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Chief, is that true? In 10 words or less? Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's not that simple because my answers are never that simple.
Okay.
There is some out there. The problem is Oklahoma State did a study on it, and there is really no, it doesn't last very long. That you can put it on there, and it's, a matter of months at best that it maintains its ability to reduce fires.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Gowdy, Virginia Municipal League. I will tell you that on the day that the governor signed the last mulch bill, there was a mulch fire in Lynchburg, and there's been numerous mulch fires in our other localities. They're all were waiting for the case before they've enacted their own ordinances, but they certainly have this in mind and have been watching the ongoings of the mulch bills.
Mm-hmm.
And we oppose it for the reasons you've heard.
Mulch madness. All right.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with.
I always thought I'd, be handling like really important, mulch. Should this be at the proper party? Okay.
It could be.
Mr. Lurch.
Just to express concerns that this.
Pro mulch or anti mulch?
Pro-proffer party, how about that? How about that?
Yes, sir. Please speak to us.
Just to echo some of the concerns raised regarding the safety issues and not having this in the vested rights statute. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lurch. Always enjoy your comments. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ed Rhodes, Virginia Fire Prevention Association, and we oppose the bill.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Obenshain. Wow.
I'm
Only
glad I could bring all these parties together. Just a couple of things to close. Number one, I take no issue with the court's opinion. This isn't casting any aspersion or suggesting that the court's wrong. I don't doubt that the court's right, and the city of Harrisonburg did a better job than we did in crafting its ordinance. And this is to correct what was clearly the intention of the General Assembly 2 years ago. And the only thing my friend, the chief of the Harrisonburg Fire Department, said that I would just point out is that if the national fire code is changed pursuant to the work that's being done, this won't have any impediment whatsoever to the implementation of those changes. This bill is prospective, or it deals with
mulch already in the
certificates
ground
of occupancy that are already granted. And if the National Fire Code is changed, it's going to deal with new building permits and new properties. And the National Fire Code can certainly address that looking prospectively. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just would ask you to consider this as a clarification of what we did 2 years ago.
Thank you, Senator Obenshain. Motion being to report Senate Bill 972. Is there a second? A second being properly supported. Is there any discussion?
Speaking to the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
Speaking to the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
This is, I think, an important issue that we've got to understand. I don't support the bill. The wildland interface within our building codes needs to be addressed, and this is, I think, a great way to start to address the issue. Not costing anything. We still have combustible materials on the side of multifamily dwellings, single family. We still have lots of issues in the code. As the chief pointed out, you do have fire spread that occurs from the outside, crawls up the exterior vinyl siding, which is petroleum based, into the attic with zero detection whatsoever. I myself have run fires like this. About a dozen years ago, it happened to be also a senior living facility occupied by 90 elderly people who almost died that night because of this sort of interface issue. And it's real to the committee. This is a real issue where you'd have combustibles that can, in fact, self-ignite with this type of material, and would urge we leave this, in fact, alone, and I respect the patron for carrying and understand sort of the property rights issues, but this is a fine line between public safety and life safety that I think this committee needs to strongly consider and oppose this bill. So,
Thank you, Senator Pike. Anyone else? Seeing none, clerk open the roll. Senator Donovan?
10 ayes, 2 nays.
10 ayes, 2 nays.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you, and I appreciate your comments. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I believe that takes care of all the outside patrons. So what we're going to try to do is, we've got a couple charter bills, so I'm going to bounce around just a little bit here, kids. First, I'm going to go to Senator McClellan. You have Senate Bill 356. I'm just going to take that one up real quick, and then we'll come back, because I think you're, well, we can do your second one, too. No, please.
All right, Senate Bill 356 is a charter bill that would create in the charter the Office of Inspector General and clarify the differences in duties for the Inspector General and the Auditor. The city has actually already created an Inspector General, but this bill is to put in the charter those duties so there is no dispute, no confusion about the differences between what the Inspector General would do and what the auditor would do. If you have any further questions, I can answer them, but it's.
And the, Senator McClellan, the Office of the Inspector General would conduct itself in the same way that we anticipate offices of Inspector Generals throughout government would conduct themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it would, the Office of the Inspector General would oversee and make sure that everybody's staying honest in whatever agency or
Yes, they
part
would,
of the administration.
They would handle waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
auditor would just audit.
Any questions of the
audits.
patron? Excellent bill. Move to report. Second being supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by voting aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Please close the roll.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
12 ayes, 0 nays, and the bill is reported. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to unwind one bill. Ladies and gentlemen, on my own motion, Senate Bill 714. Senate Bill 714 was defeated by this committee by a vote of 7 to 8. I believe that was the number. If not, is that the number, Chad? 6 to 7. Having voted on the prevailing side by which Senate Bill 714 failed to report out of this committee, I now move that that be reconsidered. Under the rules, ladies and gentlemen of this committee, we have the ability to do that for the following meeting. So this has been exactly to that time. So that's my motion. Yes. Do I have a second? Second being properly made. Any discussion? 714, which was Senator Chase's bills about IDAs. EDAs, IDAs, we call them. Any discussion? Hearing none. Please open the roll, clerk, for reconsideration. Just to reconsider. Just to reconsider. Clerk will close the roll.
10 ayes, 1 nay.
10 ayes, 1 nay. That bill is now before us. I now then am going to make a motion that it be carried over and that it be sent to either VEDP or I believe we have even talked about the Office of the Attorney General to study what is being proposed by Senator Chase, which is to eliminate IDAs or more specifically to then make them be open and responsive to the local governments that are there. Isn't that the bill? Explain your bill for 2 seconds, please.
Mr. Chairman, just explain to me maybe, what exactly does your motion do and who is going to study this? And are you going to study this without the input of basically the amount?
Senator, what I'm doing is I will be sending, my motion is to carry over this bill for a year and send it off for a study to the Secretary of Commerce and Trade and the VEDP to look at certain issues, okay? And those issues would be the efficacy of EDAs and IDAs, okay? And whether they're functioning properly or whether there's an issue based on what Senator Chase is proposing in her bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favola.
I offer a substitute motion,
Senator Favola.
which is to.
Hold on. We've got a first and a second. Your substitute motion is what?
My substitute motion would be to keep this bill gently asleep. PBI it.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion fails without a second. So before us is a motion to carry over for the year and to refer by letter. Is there any discussion? Senator, can you propose to us and tell us very succinctly, because you had over an hour, and I know that you have supporters here for your bill, but we've already litigated these issues before this committee. I think they're well formed. What we're doing is out of consideration and maybe have this issue looked at. And that's what we're proposing to do. Can you tell us why you believe it should be looked at?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to ask my constituents behind me to stand who are here in support, who took time out of their busy schedules to be here today.
Thank you for coming.
Basically, what we're asking for, this needs to be studied. I mean, we look at the issue and we have a lot of differences of opinion, but I will tell you, this is not just a Chesterfield thing. This is a state thing. So this letter is going to study a couple things. A complete listing of all EDAs and IDAs along with current membership, as well as indication if any members are currently elected officials. The return on investment to the locality and the Commonwealth. The actual economic capacity that each EDA and IDA is producing. Oversight and accountability mechanisms in place for each, in particular fiscal accountability, like an annual budget approved and who it's approved by. A mechanism in place for extra budgetary expenditures and method of approval, availability of budget and expenditures to the general public, feasibility of a participation in the Public Procurement Act, and finally, two things, role in the county or region as defined in the code as well in practice of each EDA and IDA. And finally, an indication of whether or not the EDA or IDA is competing with the private sector for economic development authorities.
Thank you, Senator Chase. Is there any questions of Senator Chase? Is there a comment? Senator Favola.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. If in fact you're going to send this letter, the only way I can become comfortable with it is if you mention in the letter that local governments have to be at the table. I'm expecting in your letter, you're directing the Secretary of wherever's Commerce and Labor, whatever secretariat you think this is.
Commerce and Trade, but I think also VEDP.
Okay. Well, I would expect that they would convene a group of stakeholders. I certainly appreciate the fact that individuals have taken the time to come out today to express their views, but there are a range of stakeholders that have views on how the authorities operate, and we need to hear from all of them if we're truly going to have a valuable study. So I would strongly suggest that representatives from the Virginia Association of Counties and the Virginia Municipal League be involved in this study. So if you can incorporate that into your letter, it would give me greater comfort.
Senator Favola, I will be sure to accommodate you in that request. I think that's reasonable. To the clerk, I would say let's make sure that there's a notation of that. In the same way, to the clerk, I'm handing you, she had given me kind of a draft of what she was looking for. And so with that, is there any more comments? Hearing none, thank you, Senator Chase.
Thank you.
The motion is to continue the matter and refer with a letter. And a second had been made. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please open the roll. All opposed, vote nay.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. The matter of Senate Bill 714 is now, after being reconsidered, continued over with a letter to the appropriate agencies for further discussion and investigation. And also, the record will reflect that we will include local government's input in all of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
And
you,
members of the
Senator
committee,
Chase.
thank you.
Okay, let's get back to business here. All right. Senator McClellan, because I like you best, let's just keep going. Senate Bill 290.
Okay. I have a substitute.
Let's get the substitute before us. Thank you, Senator. Ooh, that's a short one.
While you're passing that out, so Senate Bill 290 deals with inclusionary zoning, or as we refer to it in the code, affordable dwelling unit ordinances. These are ordinances that encourage or require the creation of housing that is affordable to people of all income levels. We have two separate code sections in Virginia that authorize localities to adopt affordable dwelling unit ordinances. Section 15.2-2305 authorizes very limited use of these ordinances for the widest, the majority of localities in the Commonwealth. In 15.2-2304, however, there are a handful of localities, mostly in Northern Virginia and Albemarle County, that have a lot greater freedom in how they craft their ordinances. And so for Albemarle, Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, Alexandria, and Fairfax City, these localities can pass a straightforward ordinance that requires all developers to create a certain number of affordable units in exchange for density bonuses. For all other localities in the state, there's a very cumbersome process that quite frankly, has not encouraged the adoption of these ordinances. And so what my bill would do in the substitute is give all localities the option to adopt their affordable dwelling units under either code section. That's the bill. But the main reason for the bill is, I just want to very quickly talk about the importance of...
Well, let's get the substitute in front of us.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Because we're going to forget. Motion being made on the substitute amendment in the nature of substitute and a second being there. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor to adopt the amendment in the nature of a substitute, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. And the substitute's for. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So here's the key problem I'm trying to solve. So in 2017, a national low-income housing coalition analysis of the availability of affordable renting units showed that in Virginia, we only have enough affordable housing units for 54 out of every 100 low-income families. So almost half of low-income Virginians, which is more than 188,000 households, they do not have access to affordable housing. The shortage is most pronounced among extremely low-income households, which are those earning less than 30% of the median income, and for whom Virginia only had 37 affordable homes out of every 100 families in need. So that's a gap of about 156,000 affordable dwelling units. And affordable dwelling unit ordinances or inclusionary zoning is one tool that localities can use to try to incentivize more affordable dwelling units being built. And that's the bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Donovan.
I'd just like to speak in favor of this bill.
Yes.
This bill basically gives permission to these localities to have less regulations in making available affordable housing. We cannot solve our poverty and our healthcare issues if we don't solve the issue of having affordable housing. So I hope that everybody will support removing these obstacles to localities figuring out how to do this. Localities figure out housing, not us so much.
Thank you, Senator Donovan.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman, for the
Of course.
patron.
Senator
Yes.
Favola.
Okay, Senator McClellan, I expect that counties will be able to define what a housing dwelling unit program would be. That would be
Yes.
done by ordinance,
Well-
and they can decide sort of when it's going to be a requirement, when it's not, how much density might be required to implement it. Okay.
Yes, within
Okay,
the,
thank
within
you.
the parameters of the authorizing statutes. And again, right now, there are two authorizing statutes. It's just one only applies to a handful of localities and the other applies to everybody else.
Okay.
So we're not actually changing the authorizing authority. We're just opening it up to every locality. You can choose which one you adopt your ordinance under.
And Mr. Chairman, Senator
Senator
McClellan,
Vaughn.
and then how you adopt it, how you apply it, all of
Correct.
that is.
Day before reconvene date?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, last comment, I support the bill and I would like to see it passed. If you're ready for a motion or if you want to continue the conversation, it's your
Well, is there anybody
choice.
against this bill? No. Andrew Clark is standing up. Come on, Andrew. We thought you were going to the restroom. I'm sorry. We didn't know you were-
I can.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
This is a good one for the Stuart Stanley Proffer study, I think, or the Proffer Party. No, I'm kidding. No, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia. We do oppose this legislation primarily on the basis not that it's not a laudable goal. We clearly have an issue across the state that's been well documented. We just haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen the success in Fairfax County. A couple numbers, and then I'm going to turn it over to one of our members to talk about his perspective. Fairfax County, 2,500 units over 19 years. That's about 126 a year. Loudoun County, about 3,000 units since 1993. There's a lot of local incentives available, historic tax credits, tax abatement programs that have really been effective, and they're market-driven, they're voluntary, and they've put a lot of units onto the ground. I jokingly said send it to study, but really I think this is something that we need to have a statewide discussion on and actually look at some tools that we can give localities to actually put some of these units on the ground. I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Armstrong, who's one of our members out of Charlottesville, to talk about some of his.
Yes, sir. Please step forward. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm Charlie Armstrong, builder and developer from Charlottesville. We're a small local builder. We build about 100 homes a year there. I have served on and chaired the City of Charlottesville's Housing Advisory Committee for about a decade. Thankfully, have rotated off of that now. And I'm a strong advocate for affordable housing in general. We've done a lot of developments where we've partnered with nonprofits and put a lot of affordable units on the ground that way, often voluntarily. Without a doubt, we have a major housing shortage locally for us and statewide. Though I think the goal of this bill is good, the actual local ordinances and policies that result from it have proven ineffective already. Albemarle has this authority. Albemarle has not been able to put affordable housing on the ground. Albemarle's problem has gotten far worse. We don't have any solution to our affordable housing problem in sight. We need a bigger solution than enabling a small solution. We really need to think broadly here. So that's half the problem I see with it. The other half is that to produce the affordable units, a typical incentive program almost always tends toward regulation and not incentive. So the incentives are never enough. In our experience, if a developer has, let's just call it a hypothetical 100-lot development, and 15% of those are required to be affordable to get some incentive, the developer usually, or the builder, has to subsidize that by about $50,000 a unit. That $50,000 of extra cost per affordable unit to make them actually buildable has to go somewhere, and it either goes to the land below it or the houses that come out of it that are market rate. So 50,000 divided by the remaining 85 units, and there's 9,000 a lot that gets tacked on to the market rate houses. So the problem there is you create some affordable housing, not nearly enough to even dent the problem, and you create some market rate houses that are $9,000 more expensive each now, and you're widening this gap in the middle that nobody can serve. There's no regulation requiring it. There's no market that can meet it. And so this gap just continues to get wider every time we add stuff like this. So I think there's a better solution. Localities really need to look hard at what they require. look hard at the things that add costs. There are a lot of things in local ordinances that add that cost, and I think a bigger solution is in order here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming in your advocacy. We appreciate it greatly.
Mr. Chairman?
Anybody else opposed? Sir, Senator
Could I have a question to the speaker, if you wouldn't mind? I'm sorry, I didn't get the gentleman's name.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Charlie Armstrong. Mr. Chairman, the question to Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, sir. Senator McPike.
The crux of this bill deals with density, and density builds equity, builds value, it's actually transferable. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do with it, coupled with low-income housing tax credits, that depending on the deal, maybe there's economic issues within different zones within Albemarle, but wouldn't that also provide options in the toolbox for localities there's a portfolio of tools that are available on the table now. How does adding value hurt? In other words, density, increased FAR of a property, to me, increases my value of my property, right? Because I can build more, and I can leverage that. I can do lots of things with it. You said that you would be hurt by this.
Not me, the people buying the house. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the additional time. In theory, that's absolutely right. The practice is more like the used car sale where they mark it up before they mark it down. What's going on in Charlottesville, to give you one example right now, is they're looking at downzoning through their comprehensive plan all of the downtown areas. So places that used to be able to build 9 stories, now they want to take to 6. But if you come in with affordable housing or something like that, they would give you back maybe 2 of those. So instead of 9 by right, which you used to have, you're down to 6 by right, but you can proffer or provide some. This is your incentive. This is what I'm talking about. The incentive is not really an add-on. It's a takeaway before an add-on.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I did have some folks that were in favor who would like to speak, and then I'd like to make a final comment.
Well, we assume there was no opposition, so. Welcome, Mr. Lurch.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch, Virginia Association of Counties, also speaking on behalf of VML. I can tell you that this has been identified in our legislative program as offering an appropriate incentive for workforce affordable housing, particularly for teachers, first responders that live within our communities to have that ability. I think to address maybe some of the concerns you heard from Mr. Armstrong, this is by local ordinance, and we invite the developers and home builders to help build that ordinance to create the right incentives to make it work at the local level. We'll have, affordable dwelling housing party at the local level. We'll work with them to make it work, and so that's why we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lurch. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we thank Senator McClellan for putting this legislation in. We do support the legislation. As you heard Senator McClellan tell you, there is a real lack of affordable housing, not only for people at the extremely low income level, but as Mr. Lurch just alluded to, in many localities for people who are middle income as well and who serve those communities, teachers, firefighters, police officers, other first responders. And what this legislation does is it provides every locality in the state a range of options from which they can craft appropriate ordinances with the input from developers and from others to meet the needs of their community. And we hope that you will look favorably upon it.
Thank you, Christy. Good to see you. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Elizabeth Rafferty, and I'm with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and I'm here on behalf of the administration this afternoon. And we support this bill as it provides localities with an additional tool in the toolbox for them to support their efforts to provide affordable housing to all of their citizens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just wrap up by saying, from my understanding of the opposition really is opposition with individual localities and the affordable dwelling unit that they may have chosen to adopt. But the bottom line question for the committee is this: should Albemarle have one set of rules that gives them more flexibility on how to address affordable housing issues in their locality, but Nelson, Louisa, and Charlottesville that all surround have to play by different, more restrictive rules? Should Arlington County have more flexibility than Falls Church and Arlington? I'm sorry, should Alexandria have more flexibility than Arlington and Falls Church? It really is a matter of Why not give everyone the same authority to craft affordable dwelling units that fit the needs of that jurisdiction and not say for these 9, you get more flexibility than everybody else in the state?
Thank you. Senator Steff?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out one thing. This is an area I've spent a lot of time with when I was still in local governments. We actually use 15.2-2305, which really lays out how to get the 30% density credit and walks through some of the stuff. And the previous speakers who were opposed to it actually brought up a couple of good points where you're actually subsidizing these by increasing the price somewhere else. So I kind of like this too, where we have the high tuition, high aid model for higher education or some other things. Somebody has to pay for it. So what we're doing is we're taking where if the houses were going to be truly middle income houses, we're subsidizing it and putting more on the backs of those on the middle income houses. But if you look at 15.2-2305, that really is, I don't want to say a better way to do it, but it is an option of how to do it. And I commend the patron for not striking 15.2-2305, which was in the original bill. So this is still a better bill than the other one. But I still can't support it just because of the way it's structured still. I think that, this is one of the things that we, especially being in the Senate side, we really need to put the time and effort into this and the appropriate due diligence to make sure that when we put something out, we've looked at the entire sections of the code that affect and push on this and pull on that, but really affect this side of the code. I think there's a better solution to this, but I think it takes time to work out what that better solution is going to be. So that's kind of where I am on this one, and no harm to the good Senator McClellan. A great job with this, but I think it still needs a lot of work, and I think that this is one thing, and I'm not saying send this to a study, vote however you want on this, but this is one that no matter what happens here, I wish we could have the housing, and maybe with a separate letter, we have the Housing Commission really look at this. This is a problem that needs to be solved, but I think we're really going to have to put time into solving this problem. There's more than one way to solve this, and we really should have a lot of tools in that toolbox. I think that we truly need to put the time and effort into this one, no matter the disposition of this bill. So that's kind of my comment on this.
Elizabeth, this seems like it's right up the alley of the Housing Commission. Could we give it a serious look? I mean, I don't know. That's just an option if the bill is not successful. No, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a motion?
If I may. Second.
Second being properly made. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, clerk, please open the roll. Elizabeth, doesn't look like it's coming to the Housing Commission because it's going to the floor of the Senate.
9 ayes, 4
Congratulations.
nays.
9 ayes, 4 nays, Senate Bill 290.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sir.
Even if this bill passes, I truly believe that the Housing Commission, and I hope it passes, but I truly believe the Housing Commission should look at this problem because that's where this needs to, there is a solution, a better solution to this. And I think that the Housing Commission truly should put the time and effort into this, no matter what the disposition of this bill. And I truly mean that. I think there's a better way to do this. I think there are other tools we can kind of pull out here. I just think that there's a better way to solve this.
Your bill is reported.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah. All right. So, Senator Favola. Senator Favola, Senate Bill 839, stickers. All right. Quickly so we can get to the last 3 bills here. Is there a motion to report the bill? Cutting into my drinking time.
Okay, Mr.
just
Chairman,
kidding.
this bill is
No, he's not.
very simple. What it does is it would provide counties by the provision of an ordinance, and actually it would only be Fairfax County because I have an amendment before you that would limit my bill to the urban county executive form of government. I would ask that you adopt the amendment.
We have an amendment before us. Is there a motion to adopt the amendment? Or do we have to read the amendment?
No.
You want to read the amendment, DB? No? It's good? We're good. All right, there's a motion to adopt the amendment. Is there a second? And having a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
So it would essentially allow Fairfax County by ordinance, when they put up a sign that says no cut through, that they can provide some kind of permit to the residents who live on that street so the residents can go down the street. Very simple. This bill passed out of full committee in the House, 22-0. I have.
That has no impact on this Senate committee, I can tell you that.
Just let you know. Okay.
All right, any questions of the patron? Any opposition to the bill? We know you support
He
it.
supports the bill.
Motion being properly made to report this bill. Is there a second? Second being made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. No with an nay. Please open the roll. Carico hates stickers.
Doesn't have to be.
Chase hates stickers too.
11 ayes, 2 nays.
Thank you.
11 ayes, 2 nays. The bill is reported. Thank you, Senator Vola. All right. Senator Lewis. Senator Lewis, I believe this is the one where we've heard testimony on this. So we don't need to hear testimony on this again. You can just briefly in a minute or two. As you notice out in the audience right now, it is packed house. I know.
Look at the picture.
Shows all the interest in the remaining bills here in the Senate Committee on Local Government.
Mr. Chairman, you will understand that as empty courtroom justice, right? Isn't that what they call it?
No, I hope not.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to revisit this. I have some amendments which I'd like to report, which I think answer some of Senator DeSteff's well-taken questions in regard to the bill from 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And they're just some
Okay.
line amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And while they're being handed out, I'll tell you what they do. It provides that no locality shall be a member of this regional authority until the governing body of such locality elects by ordinance to join the membership of the authority.
All right, so that makes it optional, not
Voluntary completely.
Not
Also,
required.
that the authority shall not become effective, and this is on line 82, shall not become effective until localities comprising at least 2/3 of the population of the Hampton Roads Planning District ordinance, pass ordinances seeking to join the authority.
Motion on the amendments.
Moved.
Motion
And
being
actually,
made
Mr. Chairman, there's one more. On
Oh.
line 61, we took out the provision about seeking to obtain loans. They don't have authority to borrow.
Okay.
And that's it.
Do I have a motion on the amendments? Motion being made. Is there a second? Second supporting that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the line amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. The aye has it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chairman, just briefly.
Please.
The other item that you have in front of you, and again, I think those answer some of the concerns that Senator DeSteff had. The other item that I just had passed out is a resolution from a steering committee of the Hampton Roads Sea Level Rise Preparedness and Resilience Intergovernmental Planning Project. And a lot of recitals in there. You may recall the testimony when I presented the bill of retired Rear Admiral Ann Phillips. She was an integral part of this steering committee that met for 2 years and studied the challenges in the Hampton Roads areas through flooding and sea level rise. And one of the recommendations from this committee was that an entity be created that has the capability to facilitate, plan, implement action in regard to preparation for sea level rise, and that it be encompassed by the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission within the 17 jurisdictions. And you will see that this was signed by the Commonwealth of Virginia, Secretary of Natural Resources Molly Ward, Secretary of Public Safety Brian Moran, the Port Authority, Virginia Transportation Hampton Roads District, the City of Norfolk, Christine Morris signed off on it, as did the City of Virginia Beach, Philip A. Davenport. And then it lists other key participants, including the United States Navy, of course, obviously, among many others. And I believe the Corps of Engineers may have been a participant as well. Bottom line is, as I mentioned when I presented the bill, we've been warned by Moody's that how we adapt to sea level rise and resiliency is going to be a critical part of how they evaluate our bond rating worthiness going forward. The Navy is keenly aware, obviously, of the problem. Everything they do in Hampton Roads is adapting, preparing for flooding. The road into Norfolk Naval Station, I'm told 10 to 12 times a year now and increasing, is impassable because of flooding. We have to send a message, and it appears unlikely that we're going to get the cabinet level position this year, although there's a possibility, but it appears unlikely at this stage in the General Assembly. So I believe we have to send a message. There's no money associated with this. They're going to have to, should they choose to activate it, they're going to have to find a way to fund it within their own existing budgets. They can come to the Assembly at some point. They can seek grants. There's lots of federal money out there. And so what I guess I'm saying is this is a real way to enable, at least on a regional basis, the most threatened region by the issue, to send a clear message to the outside world that we're serious about dealing with this.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
that's the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Donovan.
Yes, I just wanted to check, Senator Lewis, are you aware of Senate Bill 985 that passed out of Finance this morning? So it's from Wagner. It's the Hurricane and Flooding Risk Reduction and
I am
Bond
aware.
Rating Protection Act.
I'm aware. Very different bill.
And so very different, it is, but it's putting together an infrastructure. These would be two competing infrastructures to kind of resolve this problem and address the bond rating. I'm just curious as to why we would need both, because sometimes when you have these organizations mushroom up, they end up not being very complementary.
Senator Donovan, Mr. Chairman, his is very different. It is a statewide membership appointed by the governor. It meets, as my understanding, is 4 times a year. And it has, as my understanding is, it's essentially, as I believe Delegate Stolle referred to it, a study group. And we've already got a study group, which he chairs, which I'm a member, which Senator Locke's. So very different approach. This is talking about, again, a cohesive regional, specific to Hampton Roads, regional plan appointed by regional folks from our regional Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. So that's the differences, key and important differences that I see.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would it be fair, Senator Lewis, to compare these two different organizations? One's at the 15,000-foot non-operational level, and your bill is more 1,000-foot action level if you can figure out what we need to do.
That's a very apt description, Senator Marsden. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions, patron? We're not going to, we took testimony on this before. I don't think we need to. Senator Steff. Senator Steff, you've exceeded your question limit.
Well, that's wonderful, Mr. Chairman. With that, I will not ask this in the form of a question. I'll present this in the
Please
form of
ask in the form of a question.
Senator Lewis, my biggest concern is still that we have 17 jurisdictions we're going to put into this. I understand you addressed this with at least 2/3 have to be involved with it,
right,
or vote to get involved with it. I still have concern that once involved with it, there's going to be jurisdictions that can't get out of it. And we know that when the 17 jurisdictions get put into something, if those who don't want to be in there can't get out of it, and they didn't want to get into it to begin with, I just think that this should have gone through the PDC, and the entire PDC should have been on board with this first. I support the secretariat position or deputy secretariat position. I supported what Senator Wagner was doing earlier today. I just think there's a better way to do this without jamming people into something and not giving them the ability to get out. So if all 17 jurisdictions, if 2/3 of them said, hey, we want to be in it, and 1/3 or close to 1/3 did not want to be involved with it, then they're stuck with being involved in something that they can't get out.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Steff, they have to pass a resolution to join.
Understood. But even if they do, they're still, once they're in there, they can't get out. And that's my biggest concern with this. And I think that this detracts from what we're trying to do on the other side, which is push the importance of this at the secretariat level or deputy secretariat level, making this a cabinet position.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mr. Chairman, Senator Steph, I can tell you with about 90% certainty that you're not going to get a cabinet position out this year. You may get something, but it's not going to be a cabinet secretary for this.
All right, excellent.
Lines, just if I may, line
Sure.
70,
Senator
that
Donovan.
you cannot withdraw from the authority, would you consider changing that line?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I think that's what Senator DeStep was getting to, is that the localities ought to have the ability to withdraw.
DB.
And so if that's a reasonable,
Absolutely, Senator Donovan.
very good.
Would
And there's
accept that
no
as a friendly
fiscal-
amendment.
no fiscal impact?
I haven't been made aware of any. And
DB, you have an amendment or where that amendment might fall? If it's a friendly amendment. on the
It is,
page.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
DB.
So just looking at this, I believe that we would just need to strike the first sentence then of that section, so all of line 70 and the first 5 words of line 71, authority is set forth that herein, all of that would be stricken.
Is that a friendly amendment, Senator Lewis?
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Motion being made to make that line amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second being properly supported. Is there any conversation or discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor to adopt the line amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The line amendment is adopted. Is there a motion on the bill?
Moved report.
Motion being made to report the bill and a second properly supported. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Just Steph, you sure?
I'm good.
Okay, baby. All right. Clerk, please open the road.
Eight ayes, 5 nays.
8 ayes, 5 nays. The bill is reported from this committee. Senate Bill 397 report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the committee.
You're welcome, sir. All right. First in our hearts, but last in our charts.
I don't want to cut into
Senator
your drinking
Sturtevant.
time, Mr. Chairman.
So, that's why I like you best. So let's take up the charter bill first.
Yes, sir.
And remember, it's our time. Okay, it's not just my time. It's our time.
Our time,
It's
okay.
our time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, if you live in Richmond, represent Richmond, have spent any time in Richmond, you know that our public school system infrastructure has got
Oh, wait.
very.
Don't we have a charter bill?
That's what I'm referring to.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep. Our public school infrastructure has got some very, very serious challenges and has for a very long time. Our school buildings in the city of Richmond, many have ceiling tiles that have fallen, instances of ceiling tiles falling on children's heads, of kids, students in their classrooms being burned on hot water pipes that are no longer properly covered. There are a litany of problems and challenges that have been cataloged by various media outlets and the school system for several years. And so a group of activists and interested citizens and Richmonders who care about the environment in which Richmond City students attend school worked this past summer to get a referendum on the ballot before the voters of the city of Richmond. It was a diverse group of folks, including the Richmond Crusade for Voters, the Sierra Club, and others. Paul Goldman, who is here, is one of those who was very instrumental in leading that effort, and I know he'll like to speak briefly to this bill. But they were able to get the large number of signatures to get that referendum on the ballot, and what that referendum said and what was ultimately approved by the voters of the city of Richmond this past November is what is before you today in Senate Bill 750. And this is a bill to amend the charter of the city of Richmond to do just a couple of very, very simple things. And it is to require the mayor of Richmond to present to the city council a fully funded plan to modernize the city's K-12 educational infrastructure that is consistent with national standards, and to do so without raising taxes. That was part of the referendum that was passed by 85% of Richmond voters in November. But that if such a plan is not feasible, that the mayor simply make that known to city council, that it can't be done. And that is, really is the long and the short of this bill. It's very simple. It achieves a laudable goal, and I hope it would be the pleasure of the committee to report it, and I know that there are some folks who would briefly like to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Senator Sturtevant. Is there anyone who on this panel has a question for the patron? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this bill? Mr. Goldman, welcome.
Senator?
It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Briefly, let me put this in context. In 1955, the Supreme Court of the United States, Brown v. 2, said that facilities, just by the physical nature of their plant, could deny students equal rights. Everybody in Richmond knows that's the case here. How do the people address a problem that they don't feel their leaders are addressing? A couple of clients of mine, former clients, Henry Howland, Doug Wilder, pointed out that the Constitution of Virginia actually blocks citizens from doing this. In 1988, the legislature gave special rights, a charter change, providing the people of Richmond the right, if they could get an extraordinary number of signatures, get something on the ballot, exactly what they wanted, it would come over to the General Assembly if it passed in that exact form. 85% of the people voted for this. 99% of all African Americans voted for this exact language. And I would submit it's not for us to decide. They certainly know what's good for their city, and they just want this passed. Now, we've done it one time before, 2003. That's how we got the elected mayor, also by this. It is true there's some opposition to this, but the public has spoken. And that's what I think this issue is all about. People have a right in Richmond to say what's necessary in their city. And we work together, as Glenn pointed out, with various groups. And Johnny, why don't you? Sure.
Good evening, Chairman and Senators. My name is Johnny Walker, and I'm on the Board of Directors for the Crusade for Voters. The Crusade for Voters is really the oldest organization in the city of Richmond, civil rights organization in the city of Richmond. It really was formed as a result when the schools were closed in Virginia as a way to advocate for Afro-American students. This summer, we went door to door, all over the city of Richmond, knocking on doors, talking to the citizens of Richmond about the deplorable situation in our schools. And the concern about our schools and our children, our public schools, not being a priority, I'll say it again, not being a priority in our city for some time. We worked to get signatures, more than was required. What was that number, Paul? Signatures.
Well, you needed 10% of all the registered, 10% equal to how many people voted in the last presidential election, so we're talking 15,000 basically.
So we were able to get about 16,000 signatures from citizens in the city of Richmond to get it on the ballot in November so that the citizens of Richmond could vote on it. The citizens of Richmond voted for this referendum just as my senator, Senator Sturtevant, presented it to you today, word for word. 85% of the voters in the city of Richmond voted for this referendum for our children. What we're asking for you to do is to respect the will of the citizens of Richmond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, very much, not only for your kind words, your words today before this committee, but also your service to this community. Is there anyone opposed to this bill?
I just have a general question.
Senator
I
Favola.
mean, if the referendum passed, the mayor, I would expect, will do everything within his power to honor it. And this is a Section 1 bill, so I'm wondering what purpose will it serve having this language in the Section 1 of the code, other than saying we support it? Could you
Sure.
inform me?
And I think Mr. Goldman touched on that. It is, I think, this is the condition of Richmond City schools, the infrastructure itself, is a problem that has been has existed for decades and decades and decades. Deferred maintenance, not enough money put into upgrading and building new schools. And so this is a way by, I think, doing it through the charter, as I understand the intent of those who really led this effort over the summer to get it onto the ballot, is to make it a #1 top priority for city government.
Thank you, Senator. All right, this committee operates by motion.
Move to report.
Motion is to report the bill. Hold on. You know I like to give everybody a chance here. Senator McPike.
Mr. Chairman, just a question to the patron. I mean, first off, I applaud the folks that advocated and got the referendum, because I think it elevated an issue in the community, which is very important that communities do. The question of the patron is, charters are enabling, is there anything in the existing Richmond City Charter that prohibits the mayor from creating a budget and a school board from voting on a budget in relation to capital projects? It seems that this happens every day all across Virginia. Why is this required in the city charter? I like advocacy-wise what is done in advocating and raising the profile of the issue, but why is this required to be in a charter?
Well, the charter gives the citizens the right by initiative to try to change the charter. As we know, we don't have home rule like we have in some other places, and that goes back to the history of Virginia. This was put in there to give the citizens a right to add to their charter. This is what they feel is necessary, that they want the mayor to come and produce a plan. Let's understand, the average school in Virginia is 46 old. The average school in Richmond is almost 60. The average school in Virginia is obsolete and dysfunctional. This is not new. There was a 2002 survey done by JLARC warning everybody that we were going to face a crisis. And so the public said, look, we're not getting the kind of plan to fix it. We have this right to try to run our own city. And so they got together. Richmond's a place, there's been a lot of disunity. You have 85% of the people. There's one precinct, 1613, there wasn't a single dissenting vote. That's like unheard of, at least in my long term in politics. So all this is the citizens asking you, we think we know what's best for our city, and why not just trust us? This is what we think is good. It doesn't take any power away from the mayor. It doesn't take any power away from the school board. It says, look, we've waited 63 years for a plan. Since 1980, you've had a policy of not giving the maintenance money, and that's why the schools are 60 years old and falling down. Give us a chance in our own way to fix it, and this will get a plan. That's why they voted for it. And could there be another way? I don't know, but this is what the public wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We have a motion to report and a second. Senator McPike, does that satisfy? Do you have any more questions? Oh, Senator McClellan.
Mr. Chair, not to slow the train down, I just wanted to clarify for the record, Senator Favola asked why this was a Section 1 bill. Just want to clarify, it's not a Section 1 bill. This is actually going to be in the city's charter. And the reason for that is the city wants the charter to highlight the importance of this issue. So just want to clarify that.
Thank you for that clarification, Senator McClellan. I appreciate it greatly. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, open the roll. Oh, I do have a second, right? Okay, yes, I'm sorry.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 750 reports. Congratulations, Senator Sturtevant.
Thank you, Mr.
Now,
Chairman.
Senator Sturtevant, you
Yes,
have
sir.
the last bill of
Last
this
bill.
committee, last Senate bill before we move to House bills next week.
Well,
Don't let us down.
It is a bill that this committee considered last year. It is a bill
How'd we do?
that we reported it, and it actually reported from the Senate as well.
What was the score?
It was 9-4 to report to the floor of the Senate. And as far as I know, this composition of this committee is still the same. But this is the check register bill, and the localities do not oppose it. They actually really, really like it. But I'll briefly explain the bill again for you. This is a bill that would require that localities of a certain population size and school systems of a certain population size to post their financial information on their website, make it accessible on their website, and that is financial information that is already subject to FOIA. It's already FOIAble. If it is requested by a citizen, it is pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, it already has to be turned over. And this simply makes it available to the public on the locality's public website at regular intervals. And in an attempt to work with the localities in the off-season, which was mostly me negotiating with myself, I increased the threshold that this bill would apply to. So it's
You drove a hard bargain.
I do. This would only apply to localities that are larger than 25,000 people. So if you have a locality that has fewer than 25,000 people, this will not apply to them. And it only applies to school systems that have more than 5,000 students.
Senator Sturtevant, let me ask you a question, a very critical question.
Sure.
Who were the four that voted against this bill in this committee?
They were, and I think this may be the year for them to change, but it was Senators Marsden, Favola, Lewis, and McPike.
Okay. So, any opposition to this bill?
I can put something in there about mulch.
Oh, boy,
banning
jeez,
mulch
no.
For McPike.
Forget I
If
said
that-
anything.
if they get-
One technical question.
Hold on, do you see all these people coming around? All right, is anyone in support of the bill? Psych, there you go. Come on down. Felt like the price is right there, didn't you?
The price is right.
Thank you. Yes,
The
ma'am.
price is right because we should be putting this information online. Megan Ryan with Virginia Coalition for Open Government. We strongly support the bill. This is government accountability at its most basic level. I'll give you the tale of two counties. We have Spotsylvania County, which is the 8th biggest in the state. It puts its budget data in the checkbook form online. We also have Goochland County, which got a shout out earlier, and Goochland is the 56th sized county in the state, and it actually falls underneath the threshold as set by this bill. They've been doing this for about 6 years now. And when I read the impact statements, there are these estimates of this costing tens of thousands of dollars. And many of the estimates, as I read them, are based on the notion that they are creating a very beautiful and fancy bells and whistles kind of system. Goochland shows that this can be done very quickly, very easily. They are putting spreadsheets online once a month, and that shows this very basic information. This information is already being collected, it's already being tracked, and if it's a burden to collect this information into one place, then the problem might not be with the bill, it might be with the financial reporting system that they have in place. So I would strongly encourage you to pass the bill because this is information that citizens are interested in, and it doesn't have to be a fancy system. It can be very basic spreadsheets, and it's only 4 times a year.
Thank you for coming out and waiting to the very last bill to pop up.
Thank you, Megan. And that was one thing I didn't mention initially is I also have this only where you have to report it on the website quarterly.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Thank you.
again
Thank you,
trying to
sir.
make it more palatable.
All right, those that are opposed. Now, I don't mean to do this, I'm not a timer kind of guy, but I think everybody.
Sure.
6:25.
Mr. Chairman, Joe
So-
Lurch, Virginia Association of Counties, and appreciate the patron meeting with us and negotiating against himself this year. These are significant improvements. I would say it probably only affects half the counties, half the cities. I don't know about the school divisions. Why we still want this to be a local option, I think, can be found in the fiscal impact statement. If you look at the city of Danville, they actually did this, and when they were deliberating their FY18 budget, they found out that only 10 people within the continental United States actually went to this website, but they had over 200 people outside of the continental United States or outside of the US, most of those being from Russia. So from their standpoint, while they thought it was good policy, they wondered the utility of it.
Lurch, are you alleging Russian collusion?
No, I am not alleging that, Mr. Chairman, because I think Danville is safe. You never know. But I think that's why we want it to be a local option. It should be up to the local elected officials to decide the utility of this if they want to go through the expense and the effort. Thank you. And many of our members are doing this. So I think it's not that we oppose the measure, it's that we support it being a local option.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please step forward. Well, hello.
Hi, how are you this afternoon?
It's great to see you.
Thank you, same here.
It's been a while.
I know, right?
Always great
Good
to see
evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sherry Neal, City of Portsmouth. We oppose the bill.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh-oh.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Stacey Haney with Reed Smith. I'm here on behalf of the Virginia School Boards Association. We have some concerns about the bill. I appreciate the senator limiting the scope by using size, but still, there are some school divisions that would be required to comply with this, that have more than 5,000 students, but that are still small school divisions that have, finance offices with 1 or 2 people. This would be a burden on some of our school divisions who already have suffered from, reductions in support staff, and this is going to take resources away from the classroom in order to have personnel to be able to comply with this.
Thank you, Ms. Haney. Nice to see you. Sir.
Tom Smith, Superintendent's Association. Want to express pretty much the same concerns that the School Board Association did. I spent 22 years trying to figure out what to do when you all pass laws and send them down to the local level. And my finance office had 2 people and me. This would be a burden to that. School divisions are already required to post their budget in major categories when they pass it. And this information is already available through FOIA. So we feel that for many school divisions, this will be a burden. If it is the will of the General Assembly to do this, we would ask that you help with the cost.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Mathias, City of Virginia Beach. We have grave concerns about this as we did last year. We think there would be a substantial cost. We're in the midst of doing a new payroll system, a new accounting system, and this would be additional cost. There's also the issue of their confidential payments that would have to be checked on this on a quarterly basis to make sure we didn't put out information that should not be put out. And we just think this would be an undue burden. We think it'd be a great example for the state to lead if they think this is a great idea for the state to do such things like this.
Wait, the locality telling the state what to do? Come on now. Don't be silly.
Just a suggestion.
Michelle Gotti, Virginia Municipal League. We just don't like unfunded mandates, and for all the other reasons you've heard, we oppose them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, David Blunt, Thomas Jefferson Planning District. 4 of the 6 localities in our region under the thresholds would be required to implement this bill, and for the reasons that have already been stated, we're opposed as well.
But you are happy that the bill for shoveling snow and ice got out today?
Yes, and we are very happy about that.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Senator Sturtevant, you want to close?
I don't want to take any more of the committee's time.
Excellent.
It's a reasonable bill. We've increased the threshold, reduced the amount of time that you have to report, and I think it's a reasonable bill, and I would move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and Senator, I want to thank you for your negotiating power and prowess on this with yourself. It was quite amazing. Motion to report, and I heard a second supporting that motion. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Senator McPike.
Just briefly, this came up last year, so it shouldn't be a surprise, but I do have a concern. A lot of school boards have already adopted their capital improvement program. They don't have the funding in place, the timing duration of this. I think this is something that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years as people update and modernize to increase transparency. We've seen localities do it. But we also just had a bill before that you have schools that are struggling to correct roofs, build classrooms, the issues that Richmond's city is struggling with. Richmond's lucky that they have the transparent. I think you testified that last year, which is great, but there are a lot of other localities that don't have it. And starting to update and modernize IT systems to do that is going to take away from the classroom stuff. And so I have sort of an issue with prioritizing this over something else. I think it needs to get there. I think the intent of the bill is on the mark. I just think the sequence of where this is at is sort of mal-timed. So I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I can't support it.
Thank you, Senator McPike. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this bill? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll.
Thank you.
10 ayes, 3 nays.
10 ayes, 3 nays. Senate Bill 751 report, Senator. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the final bill on the Senate docket. And with no further business, the committee shall rise.